Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Mid-Suffolk District Council. I am Councillor Keith Scarf, Chair of Mid-Suffolk District Council, and I will be chairing the meeting today. This meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded, except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending the meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we will ensure that they are not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to do so, please could you inform the committee clerk. May I please request that mobile phones are on silent or switched off and that your laptops are switched to silent. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Ipswich Town Football Ground. Item 1 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Anders Linder, Terence Carter, David Bradbury and Daniel Pratt.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest, and just to remind you that the Monitoring Officer has granted Mid-Suffolk District Councillors dispensation to allow them to speak on vote on matters concerning devolution and or local government reorganisation at all Mid-Suffolk District Council meetings where they may otherwise have a disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interest or non-registrable interest. Can I therefore call for any other declarations of interest? Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I think the directors of the CIFCO and the directors of the holding company probably need to all be declaring a non-pecuniary interest, possibly, okay. Which I am one.
You would like to declare your interest in that then?
Yeah. I was looking for a general view from the monitoring officer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's acceptable, Councillor Matheson, so you can take it that those are all included. Are there any other declarations of interest? I see none. Okay, item 3 then is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June 2025, which is paper MC/25/11. Are there any issues with the accuracy? I see no hands. Can I request a proposer then, please? Councillor Weller proposes. A seconder? I think I saw Councillor Caston first, but it may have been Councillor Richardson. Okay, this we will call for a vote by show of hands. All those in favour? That is clearly carried. Thank you. Chair's announcements is item 4. I would draw your attention on the Chair's announcements, if I can reach the right paper. I would like particularly to thank Councillor Baker, the Vice Chair, for attending the event in Newmarket on the 22nd of July, and I know that you had the opportunity to meet a royal visitor. So well done for that, and thank you very much for doing that one for me. There's one event that's not on there, and that's the Stowmarket Park Run, the 200th Park Run. I attended as Chair of Council that, and actually took part in that. I have to confess I didn't run, I walked, but I achieved a time of 50 minutes. And of 204 contestants, I was number 200. So quite funny, I'm now known as number 200. I have to say, it was very enjoyable actually. It was very, very enjoyable. On a very hot day, and I met Councillor Mansell there, and that was really good. Thank you. We now move to item 5, which is Leader's Announcements. Can I call on Councillor Andy Mellon, the Leader, to present his update?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few things to cover. Firstly, devolution and local government reorganisation. The local government minister, Jim McMahon, last week sent a letter to the leaders of Norfolk and Suffolk County Councils, and also copied in the district leaders, confirming that the statutory tests have been met and that, pending approval from the 2 county councils, legislation can be laid before Parliament which will establish a mayoral combined authority in early 2026, with the election of a mayor to be held in May. Now, whilst the government proposes eventually moving to the supplementary vote system for mayoral elections, due to the tight legislative timetable, it is not thought possible to have this in place by next May. So this election would be under the first past the post system. Now, I believe this is unfortunate, and we would have mayors across the country elected in successive years under different systems, and we could certainly end up here with a mayor with a very small electoral mandate. So I'm today calling on the Minister to consider postponing the mayoral election until the bill has received royal assent, so that our mayor can be elected using the supplementary vote system and achieve greater electoral legitimacy. I don't know whether he'll listen, but I will call for that. On LGR, we will be debating a motion on this later in the meeting, so I'll simply say that our survey, Let's Shape the Future of Suffolk Together, is still live until the end of this week. Secondly, the Tour of Britain. We're delighted that Mid-Suffolk, along with our neighbours in Baber, will host stage 2 of Britain's biggest professional cycle event, the Lloyd's Tour of Britain men's race. This stage, featuring many of the world's top cyclists, will take place here on the 3rd of September. Now, while the exact route has not yet been announced, we do know it will pass through many of our communities, and we expect this to include Debenham and and the start and finish will be in Stowmarket. So as well as being a great sporting spectacle, it will also be a fantastic opportunity for us and our communities to showcase Mid-Suffolk to an international audience. We hope that it will inspire others to get on their bikes, as well as giving a boost to our local economy. This is the first time 2 stages of the event have been held in Suffolk. Stage 1 of the race is being held in East Suffolk. So this is a real coup for our county, and we'll keep members informed as the plans progress and the route becomes clear. Thirdly, I'm proud to report that Needham Lake has been officially recognised as one of the country's best green spaces, winning a prestigious Green Flag Award. Now, this award is the international quality mark for parks and green spaces, and the award is testament to the hard work and dedication of our public realm team and rangers in providing and maintaining the beautiful open space for visitors to enjoy. Green spaces like Needham Lake mean so much to our communities, and we're delighted it's been recognised in this way. Fourthly, Hawley Junction. It's disappointing to see that the government has not yet allocated funding for the Hawley Rail Junction upgrade, nor its sister linked project at Ely. Now, these critical pieces of infrastructure would have enabled more freight to move from roads onto rail and allowed improved passenger services as well. This project was supported by all parts of the Suffolk system and had an excellent cost-benefit ratio. Now, as a Green administration strongly supporting public transport and rail infrastructure, we will continue to work alongside others to make the case to government for the Hawley and Ely improvements. I would like to remind members that applications are open for our Pride in Your Place grants. These aim to fund initiatives that promote local identity, tidy up the environment and help people be proud of where they live. And they're open to town councils, parish councils and local voluntary community faith and social enterprise organisations. And grants between £250 and £5,000 are available from a total pot of £50,000. And I encourage all members to promote these grants to relevant organisations in their communities and your parishes. And one more announcement that I didn't manage to table. On Monday, we'll be launching a new fund, the Rural Support Fund, which is allocating £300,000 a year to revitalise rural high streets, support rural towns and parishes and improve infrastructure in areas outside of Stowmarket. And the details of that will come out on Monday. And those are my announcements. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellon. Are there any points of clarification from councillors? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mellon, for those announcements. It was just a question relating to the Rural Support Grant Fund that you mentioned at the very end. Was that the fund that we were debating during the budget debate earlier in the year? And if so, could he just confirm that it will increase from 300,000 to, I can't remember what the exact amount was, but there was an increase I think in years 3 and 4 of the proposed funding timetable. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Richardson. Yes, that is the fund that we discussed earlier, and I believe those figures are correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other points of clarification? I don't see any. Okay. We move then to item 6, which is petitions.
None received, Chair.
Item 7, questions by members of the public.
Again, none received, Chair.
And now we move to question 8, which is questions by councillors. Councillor Harry Richardson, you have a question for Councillor Teresa Davis.
Thank you very much, Chair. Please could Councillor Davis give an update on the following matters relating to the Mid-Suffolk taxi bus service. Firstly, how many passenger journeys have been made on taxi buses since the 1st of November 2024? Secondly, for how long has the service been affected by recent staff sickness and shortages? How confident are you that these will be resolved in a timely manner? And what steps are being taken to ensure greater resilience for the service? And finally, thirdly, has the number of passenger journeys declined during the period of temporary disruption? Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
It says Andrew Stringer on my thingy. As if Mr. Stringer was talking. Can I firstly apologise that I can't stand at this immediate time? I'm in a lot of pain. Thank you, Councillor Richardson, for your interest in the taxi bus service. Improving rural transport as a district is very much close to my heart. I must also advertise to all, for fairness, that we have 2 providers in this pilot, Rural Connect as well, which is our demand response service, and the taxi bus service, which is our new dual use for booking and physical stops on a route. And we're obtaining a lot of information by using both types of provision. I will be answering all of your questions in my one response, so I hope you will bear with me as I have focused on what for me is important, so I think the order of the questions will be a little out of kilter, but I hope it will be very clear to anyone listening of the responses that I give. Without going into too much detail, as a full report is going to Cabinet in October, I summarise as follows. As general context, bus services in our area over the years have dwindled. Mainly operators would say this is due to lack of use. Yet residents tell me, and my fellow councillors, they need transport in the right places for the right reasons, and most importantly, that it turns up when it's supposed to. Nationally, it's acknowledged, for example, by Transport East and the NHS, that rural areas have transport deprivation, affecting people's health and well-being. This paints a conflicting picture, and one that our county council are yet to work out successfully. You can understand why, when Norfolk receives over 32 million in the past for its transport, and has more recently a further 15 million, we are poor cousins. However, as a small, more local council, we felt we wanted to help, and that is what this pilot with our 2 providers is all about. My own personal expectation on the numbers for the first 6 months were very low, if any at all, as for me, this time is spent getting the brand embedded, people getting used to seeing a consistent, regular transport, and then feeling confident it will do the job, and then opting to take the plunge. I must plug here again that your first ride is free. I know from my psychology days that it takes an average adult around 3 months to change their habit. So for me, this is a building process in more ways than one. We have an enthusiastic and dedicated provider in the form of the taxi bus business who gave themselves a very high expectation to progress over 10 routes. We have only recently succeeded in bringing out a new route in June from Debenham to Stowmarket, which makes a current total of 3 routes. They have encountered many problems, some of which you will be saddened to hear. Local news sources and operators, they confirm this is a recognised shortage of drivers across Suffolk and the UK, which has been increasingly reported. Our provider is not immune to this when retaining and training up the right drivers. It has been a challenge. One driver has even broken their leg, so luck has not been on their side. From a customer point of view, you will have seen that routes have been reduced or not operational on some days, and this was communicated via the normal channels, such as Suffolk On Board, the Mid-Suffolk Taxi Bus booking website, travel line websites and social media, all within 48 hours, with passengers encouraged to book in advance so they could be updated with any changes directly. So the actual figure of just over 100 for 2 troubled routes and 1 new route, although quite good, is only to reflect the ups and downs of a challenging pilot. For instance, the Debenham to Stowmarket route running for only a month is 10% of this figure already. In addition, and not included in this figure, the taxi bus service also caters for school commutes, which is taking a full taxi bus of respective parents' cars off the road every school day. Tourism transport, which has had a very positive response, is provided on their website, and we are looking to utilise this transport for local businesses, for their employees. As mentioned, more details will be available in our report to Cabinet in October. And whilst we, like others in the transport sector, are burdened by the driver shortage, we're no longer flying blind. We have data from the pioneering efforts of our local transport providers. Both are tenuous and wanting to succeed, and we're supporting them. We've looked at the data both providers are getting. We have introduced insightful heat mapping, and importantly, we note the preferences from travellers for shorter routes, around a 30-minute journey. And we also do not want to duplicate routes, and are always working with County Council to ensure this doesn't happen when they launch a new route. As you might know, our first 2 routes now have an overlap on parts of their route from a new bus route. So with the data from both providers, the first 2 routes are ready to be improved to work better for those travelling the Stowmarket from Bacton and Stowmarket to Thurston routes. And we have started small with our Debenham to Stowmarket route, only running on a Thursday, and yet a 10% increase in a month. This is down to local observation, helping us identify where people want to go and in what way. In respect of your final question for the figures going down, they aren't, they're going up. And I hope this is due to the time it takes for people to know about the service and make that shift to trying a new mode of transport, and probably the lovely service that the established drivers give to their customers. As with any service, it has its trials and tribulations. It's still a pilot for 1 more year, and we are still listening. I hope that's answered your questions.
Thank you, Councillor Davies, for that. Councillor Richardson, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to double check because I don't know if I heard correctly, but did Councillor Davies, you said there's been about 100 in the last 9 months?
For just one of the providers, it's 100.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes questions by councillors. We now move to agenda item 9, which is the Capital Investment Fund Company CIFCO Capital Limited Business Trading and Performance Report, which is your paper MC/25/13. I'd like to welcome Sir Christopher Hayworth, Chair of CIFCO Capital Limited, Henry Cook, Non-Executive Director of CIFCO Capital Limited, Nigel Golder, Director of Strategic Asset Management JLL, and Patrick Dixon, Associate Strategic Asset Management JLL, to the meeting. I'd like to invite Councillor Richard Winch to introduce the report and to move the recommendations. Councillor Winch.
I'd like to introduce paper MC/25/13 to note CIFCO's trading activity and performance for the year till March the 31st, 2025, and to approve the business plan for 25-26. And I'm going to, as I did last year, split my remarks into 2 parts. First of all, from the company's point of view, and then how is CIFCO as an investment for the council. So I think we all know the background here. CIFCO is a separate trading company, has 22 assets, 81 tenants, a variety of sectors, geography, sizes, and it makes its money out of renting these properties out and managing that process effectively, i.e. management of voids, rent collection, that type of thing. And as we've discussed previously, when we look at the KPIs for CIFCO, it's generally performed above industry norms. And I think if you look at the detailed data pack that you've got with you, you'll see that there's an awful lot of detail there that I think indicates that the operational side of the business is really being run effectively. What I'm going to try and do is dip through what I think are the high-level finance things that you might want to pick out of the report. So where I'm going to start this journey is with the operational profitability of the company. So in 24-25, the results were a 5% margin before tax. And if you look at the operating budget, the income is about 6.5 and the costs are about 6.4 million, i.e. the costs and the income are roughly the same. So the company operationally makes a very small profit. This isn't a surprise, this has always been there. It's a little bit more squeezed this year than normal. When we look at the company's costs, we're really talking four things. The admin costs, so the advice and the consultancy we have to support the company, the huge payment that's made to the council, the refurbishment of the properties, and then some of you might call property costs, things like insurance and that kind of thing. And it's quite difficult to do much about those costs without really sort of jeopardising the operational nature of the company. So relatively low profitability. If you then go and look at contracted rent, so this is the income side, contracted rent dropped slightly to 5.725 million last year. And there's always a slide in the pack that's called 5-year cash flow that shows a worst case scenario on what might happen to contracted rent, and it would normally give anyone a heart attack because it assumes worst case and it dipped down quite badly. But what I think it shows is that our income is going to come under pressure in the next 2 years, and then it will recover. And we've known this last year, but it's now that scenario is now becoming more apparent, and that is because we've got a number of lease breaks coming up, particularly in 2026. This year, our void rate is around 5.8%, likely to go up above 14%. Situation is aggravated by the slightly quieter market and general market for offices. So we've got relatively low profitability and the contracted rent is under pressure. The other thing that you probably picked out of the material is the issue we've got about taxation. So in 2021, our tax was 0 and it's grown. It was a bit under, 725,000 last year. Previously, we had capital allowances we could offset for tax, and corporation tax has increased from 19 to 25%. But we're caught with this ruling that for accounting purposes, interest payments over 2 million are disallowed, and CIFCO combined makes interest payments of 4.3 million. What that means practically is even though CIFCO doesn't make money as a separate company, it has £2.3 million added on to its perceived profits when tax is calculated. So if you take 25% of 2.3 million, you end up with the sort of numbers that we're looking at. So we've obviously been reviewing that, trying to work out what could be done about that. So relatively low profitability, pressure on income, and we've got this taxation issue. So the way we're navigating through this is really about selling some of those assets. And this is in two parts. So the very short-term thing is selling assets to address our void rate. So we need to do some capital investment to refurbish some properties. We need to make them suitable for new tenants. So that's like priority one, just to bridge the gap on the voids. Longer term, the strategy aims to reduce the number of large single-let office properties within the portfolio by selling these assets and therefore avoiding the need for very large refurbishment programs as well. Over the medium term, this will reduce the fund's weighting in the office sector and increase it in the industrial sector. And we've got the same thing for the medium term. The capital raise will help fund energy improvements and refurbishments. The cash flow, there's a cash flow over the next 3 years, which shows that cash is reasonably strong over the next 3 years because we're selling those properties. And that is allowing us to bridge the gap that we've got at the moment. CIFCO will also defer 10% of payments to the council, which I'll come back to in a minute. And it's also worth noting that within CIFCO, cash collection has been pretty good. I just want to comment on two things that colleagues would have noticed, the asset value. So over the last few years, the total asset value has declined by about 15% in 2022. In 24-25, the total asset value did fall again to 81.45 million, which is a very small percentage change, less than 0.5%. Over half the properties have seen value growth or remain stable. The remaining properties have seen a reduction. The most impacted are those properties with lease expiries or voids, which you'd expect because you can't get an income from them. So it's like a double whammy. It affects your income and the valuation. On the EPC side, 55.1% of the CIFCO portfolio now has an EPC rating of C or above. CIFCO owns an A-rated and an A-star rated and an A-rated property and does not have any properties within bands F or G. And the aim is to have all properties at EPC C or above by 2027. So that's just a quick whisk through. I'm going to do some conclusions at the end. That's just a quick whisk through from the company point of view. I now switch and look at it from an investment point of view. So again, I think we all know this, that CIFCO pays the council a 5% fixed fee, same each year, on the loans that were raised. And the council makes its money as the difference between those loans and the cost of borrowing. So if interest rates are high, it affects the amount of income that the council gets. Within Mid-Suffolk, a bit over 45% of the total loan is secured by fixed long-term loans with the Public Works Board. The rest of the debt is funded by our General Treasury Management, which means it is susceptible to interest rate rises. Now, I understand the history here. It's unfortunate we haven't got a greater proportion of the loan back to back, but that's where we are. But when you look at the history, you'll see our income has declined from 1.4 million in 22-23 to 468,000 this year, 24-25. But it's not an insignificant number. If I compare it, say, with council tax, which is 7.5 million, it would mean 6.5% of council tax. And over the cumulative period since 2018, 6.9 million has come from CIFCO for Mid-Suffolk. You've all probably picked up this 10% deferment. So what that means is when CIFCO pays the council, it will retain 10% of the cash and won't hand that over. We already have done this in the past, so we have a balance of about 416k, and the proposal on the table is that for the next 3 years, 10% would be deferred. That's about 243,000 a year, so a total of 750,000-ish. I'm in favour of this arrangement because we need to make sure that CIFCO has sufficient working capital going forward. Sometimes it won't be easy to sell properties at the right time, so you need to have some money in the company. It doesn't affect the council's finances, because if the council has to, it doesn't affect the overall numbers, because if the council has to borrow more, we charge interest, which CIFCO will eventually pay. So I just want to do the quick elevator pitch about CIFCO and about it from an investment point of view. So this is what I would say if somebody asked me in the lift and I had 30 seconds. CIFCO is facing a few difficult years of trading. We have a challenge with the number of expiries, especially in 2026. We have a challenge with regard to working capital over the next few years, but there is a route forward via selling some of the assets and some payment deferral. The decline in property values in the main doesn't impact day-to-day business, and it's reasonable to expect that property values will start to recover. In the medium term, we see further sales and reinvestment divest away from single-let properties with high capital exposure and away from the office sector. We need to and have been reviewing the structure and debt to realise tax savings and prepare for potential shareholder structure changes in 2028. From the council point of view, from an investment point of view, it's reasonable to expect that interest rates will fall slightly, maybe more slowly than we would want them to. The payment deferral is not ideal, but it doesn't ultimately affect the council's finances. And the net income for the council should be above the £500,000 mark upwards over the next few years. So the last thing I really wanted to say is a little bit about the governance of the company, because this is really important. I think our governance is strong. So CIFCO is overseen by a board of directors, and the council's companies are overseen by a holdings board. This time we have a 3-year business plan. We're trying to give better visibility over the medium term, which I think is important. The business plan is reviewed by overview and scrutiny. The cabinets of Mid Suffolk and Bayburn is now before the full council. We've also now got 2 councillor directors from each of the council on the CIFCO board. I would like to thank officers, Emily Atack and her team, Christopher Hayworth and the team from JLL for all the support, and we're reliant on their expertise to ensure that we can control this investment in the most effective way possible. We're confident that we have the team in place that can steer us through a difficult couple of years. And I'm also, just the final remark is I'm very pleased that we've done this at the right point on the agenda and we haven't got our guests waiting for ages while the council does other business. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winch. Very comprehensive indeed. Can I request a seconder and ask whether they wish to speak now or defer? Councillor Pearson, you wish to second? You'll speak now, okay.
Thank you. It'll be very brief. I just want to say that I believe that the proposed business plan is well structured to steer the company through the difficulties that Councillor Winch has identified and to take it forward, and I have no hesitation in supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Just a point to members, please note that the report contains an exempt appendix. Should members wish to refer to the exempt appendix in either a question or in the debate, we will have to move to a closed session. Please indicate to the Chair when standing to speak if you wish to move to a closed session. I would also say I would prefer, if possible, that we dealt with everything in public session. And if we do get a question which has to go into a confidential session, I will try and deal with open session questions first, otherwise we'll be in and out all night. I hope that is clear. Okay, can I invite questions then, please? Councillor Caston.
Thank you. Could I ask what the tax implications are on disposal of assets? You might want to.
Yep, so that's not a straightforward question, so I'm definitely going to hand that one over because we had some emails about it earlier.
Thank you. So the tax implications are the same as they would be for any other company or individual. So you have to assess whether there's been a capital gain when selling a property. So you would look at what the price was when you purchased it and when you sold it, and any expenditure that you may have had whilst holding that property. And then you would have a look to see if there's a capital gain. If there is a capital gain, then there will be capital gains tax payable against that gain. If you incur capital losses during the year, then you can offset the gain against the loss. So in truth, we won't know the extent of the tax implication until we get nearer to the end of the tax year, but that's effectively how you calculate and how we can continue to monitor that during the course of the year.
In the debate. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just for reassurance, I don't intend to refer to anything in the exempt items. It will all be information that's in the public domain. Firstly, thank you to Councillor Winch for that very comprehensive introduction. I'll only be brief in speaking on this item. I can't remember which councillor made this comment or which meeting, but earlier this year I think CIFCO was referred to as a gamble that had paid off. And whilst I agree with the general sentiments of that, I think it does a disservice to what the board have done to describe it as a gamble. What we're looking at here, both past, present and future, is a serious, well thought through, carefully managed investment with a sensible risk profile. It's done its job, it's provided income for the council. It has had difficult years in the past, and the future economic prospects for the next few years are also difficult. But what I'm looking at here, I think, is fundamentally an investment that remains sound, that will continue to allow us to invest greater sums of money in our district and for our residents. So on that basis, I'm very happy to support the business plan. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the board, both councillors and non-councillors, for their work on this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this, and I'll probably prove why in a second. I just needed to slightly respond to that. I think I was probably one of those that did mention that CIFCO was a gamble for this council. I meant it was in that political sense, that the administration had gambled, not the good people that have overseen the brilliant work that they're doing on this. I think they've done a very, very good job. And just wanted to slightly counter what you'd mentioned about greater sums. I remember someone standing on this side of the room in 2023, when we were looking at the same report again, when the councillor said that we had locked in £1.7 million worth of income into this council per year from CIFCO. That is not the figure we are looking at today. So it was not locked in. It is a challenge to get that as much income from CIFCO as we possibly can, which is what we're doing with all the reasonableness and all of the due diligence of everyone that's working on it. So I just wanted to clarify that it was a political gamble. It's paid off to a certain extent because there has been income into this council, but it is not quite the level of income that was perceived in earlier years. Thank you.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I think Councillor Winch's elevator pitch was spot on. If I was a Baber District Council looking at this and looking at page 35, paragraph 8.2, and seeing £74,000 return, I'd probably think, why are we bothering with all this risk? But from a Mid-Suffolk point of view, obviously the income is considerably higher. I remember for years base rate was 0.5%, and I said to both the previous Section 151 officer and the current one that we should be filling our boots at that sort of interest rates with long-term rates. So, for example, 50 years we're borrowing at 2.63%, which is amazing now when you think that 10-year gilts are at 5%. Unfortunately, perhaps they listened more to Arlen Close than myself, so they took on some some fixed-term loans, but nowhere near as much as I would have done at the time. But the reality is, it's producing a decent income for Mid-Suffolk as we continue to do so. So, you know, I totally commend CIFCO and feel it's never been a real political risk, certainly not compared to Gateway 14, because this was a proper, well-constructed portfolio, which I've said for years and years, and I think we should be very proud of it. Thank you.
Councillor Patchett.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I've never really been a fan of CIFCO, and I'm not sure what report Councillor Richardson's reading, but it's certainly different to mine. This was never a good investment, and it was a gamble, and the gamble is literally not paying off. The property portfolio price is down, and I know there are market forces that influence that and COVID, but if you never made the gamble in the first place, you never would have had the losses. It's not bringing in anywhere near. All I care about is net return. That's all I care about after interest. That's the only thing that matters. And you're looking at figures that are less than 600,000. So for 100 million investment, 600,000 is 0.6% that you're actually, your net bringing in. It's nowhere near. I think we inherited this from the previous administration, and they are just showing their naivety and not understanding of the financial system. And you can see it in this investment. You can see it in the county council, which is ran by the same authority, who are hundreds of millions down. And you can see it nationally, that the recent government inherited the 22 billion black hole. They used to be the party of good economics. I don't know what they stand for now, but it's certainly not economics.
Anyone else wish to contribute to the debate? Councillor Winch, do you have anything to add?
I don't. I think we've covered everything that we need to. I realise that I didn't actually move the resolution, so I'd like to move the recommendations as in 3.1 and 3.2. And I'm sorry that we didn't pepper our guests with a few more questions today, but maybe next time.
Okay, so I will now ask the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the electronic vote. Oh, we had a second.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress.
Thank you, members. That is 29 for and 1 abstention.
Can I thank our guests for attending tonight? Sorry you didn't have too many questions. Well, there we go. That's how it goes. Thank you very much. You're more than welcome to leave the meeting if you wish, or if you're really a glutton for punishment, you can stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to item 10, which is the new Sports and Community Pavilion at Chilton Fields in Stowmarket, known as the Shelf Project, or the programme. It's paper MC/25/14. I'd like to invite Councillor Tim Weller to introduce the report and to move the recommendations. Councillor Weller.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by thanking Director Emily Lee and others for producing this paper, and indeed the papers that preceded it that were discussed and decided upon at Cabinet just a few weeks ago. It's important to talk about the shelf project in the whole before focusing on the part before us today. What this administration has been very keen to do is to deliver the shelf project, which has been in conversation and discussion for many years now. And I think the public are expecting us to produce and deliver something, which is what we've started to do. So in work package 1, for example, there's references in the paper there to the work that's underway. One actually delivered, 2 in progress, and 3 proposed to be completed within the next year or so. This next work package is a really significant one financially for us, and hugely anticipated by the public, but particularly the clubs that use Chilton Field. This is a major investment of £5.2 million in our sports pavilion, and the business case is set out in the paper quite clearly. It's been discussed previously, both here and at Cabinet. The recommendations that were in front of Cabinet and also before us today are to do nothing, to build the approved design, which is option B, which is the one that Cabinet has approved. That's Cabinet's proposal to us today, or to build an alternative, which is more of a Waitrose Essentials type building, which doesn't quite meet the needs of the people that want to use it and need to use it, is more affordable, wouldn't be deliverable in the timescale that we want to be able to deliver it either, because it doesn't currently have planning consent, or at least not sufficient planning consent to get spades in ground quickly. So this is why the proposal before us today is to consider the Cabinet's adoption of option B, which is a slight adaptation of the building that has been proposed and with the planning consent agreed, and the pictures of which have been in the press quite a lot. One important thing to mention just on the matters of the pictures in the press, the ones that you'll have seen and that public will have seen have a gull wing roof, kind of a V-shaped roof, and in the proposed option that we're inviting you to vote on today, you'll notice that that's a flat roof, and the reason for that is because we can get more PV on it, and that PV will be presenting more energy into the building by virtue of it not being a V shape. So that's why that part has changed. We Cabinet have excluded options A and C. To do nothing isn't an option for us. We've made a commitment to the sports clubs and to the community to develop a pavilion. And whilst it was unclear about what the affordability of that, and 2, the deliverability of it before, particularly at the moment, before we move into a devolved situation with a unitary authority, a key consideration for us was being able to develop it before those changes happened, which is why B is our favourite, one of the reasons why B is our favourite option. The reason that this is a preferred option for the clubs is because it affords 8 changing room facilities, and this is really necessary to enable multi-sports concurrent use, is I suppose the word I'm trying to find, concurrent use of the building for the purposes that several clubs need it at the same time. The additionality that this building brings, that both the existing and the other proposed buildings, the other options that were around, are the shared spaces, the bar and kitchen. So these are an added attraction, but also potentially build in sustainability for the building financially into the future as well. At 4.5, you can see set out the employment creation opportunities that will be available during the development and also in the ongoing operation of the pavilion, and at 6.2 sets out the council's investment today on Work Package 1, but also the early parts of getting this project to the place where it is at the moment. The business case rationale is all set out in there as well, including exactly how the 5.2 million is earmarked, and those parts that are included as part of the plan, not just the pavilion, but also the immediately surrounding area, including car parks, for example, which I know is a contested issue, particularly around the development of those, and in the development phase, the impact that will have on the community. These matters have been considered, and as part of the ongoing proposal, the ongoing plans, should we make the decision today, as I hope we will, to adopt option B. And with that, I will move the recommendation set out in the paper to adopt option B and seek a seconder. Thanks.
Seconder, please. Councillor Wynne. Okay, well, that's fine. Again, the same as the last item, please note the report contains an exempt appendix. Should members wish to refer to the exempt appendix in either a question or in the debate, we will have to move to a closed session. Please indicate to the Chair when standing to speak if you wish to move to a closed session, and I would like to deal with it in open session if I can. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you. I'd just firstly like to clarify the business about the roof. The planning permission, which was, I believe, at committee February 2024, was for a single pitch roof. So there is no change required for planning. If we go for option B, the planning permission is not the Gullwyn roof. I remember that being quite, because it's a pity that the pictures of the Gullwyn roof have been perpetuated when that isn't the one that has actually got planning permission. And I'd just like to make one other comment, in that whilst I respect that there are parts of the business case which do need to be confidential, I think it's a real shame that the first section about the whole ethos of the shelf project is within the confidential papers. I think it's section 1 and most of section 2 is a lot about the background of why we're doing it and getting the clubs more involved to get better participation, and that seems to be in the hidden papers. And I'm sorry I'm referring to it because it is in a confidential paper, but I'm pretty sure that has been in a public domain elsewhere. But I just wanted to clarify the planning permission is already for that design that we're talking about.
Thank you for that clarification. I'll take that as a clarification rather than a question then. Further questions? Councillor Rowe.
Yeah, I've got a question about the quality analysis. Because within the context of even like chess and park runs where people are saying that trans women shouldn't be included, which is kind of ridiculous as park run isn't inclusive, isn't competitive, and chess is just a weird example like that there's this debate. But it says about the equality analysis impact assessments from 2022 and 2023. Since then, there has been the Supreme Court judgment, which kind of further perpetuates trying to exclude trans people from being able to access health and well-being and sports activities. And we're also seeing like the exclusion from health and kind of exclusion from education and things like that. So my question is, as this is a sports facility which thankfully the design of it kind of means that it can potentially be inclusive, for the use of it given what kind of even national government is, the direction national government is going through at the moment, I would like to have seen a new equality impact assessment to kind of make clear what the kind of impact on kind of equal use for trans people for accessing sport for this pavilion would be.
Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question. So, it's correct to say that the plan as it stands at the moment was subjected to the Supreme Court judgment outcome, and in fact, as has been said, the plan is compliant in the sense that, and I know this isn't an issue that purely relates to bathrooms and toilets, but the plan is compliant. So that matter is dealt with. As far as whether or not an additional equality impact assessment should have been done, bearing in mind that's the case, I don't know, but I will ask officers to confirm whether or not that was either necessary or should still be done. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, so as stated in the report 10.1, assessing the impact on equality is an ongoing process. It's not just a fixed point in time, so we will revisit that, and as we go through the next phase of technical design, if this item gets approved, accessibility and equality for all, and removing some of the barriers of the existing pavilion have all been absolutely crucial in the development of the project, and that will continue through the next phase. I would just make the point as well that there's an enhancement of 3 officials and alternative use changing facilities, the toilet provision, and all elements of access and equality will be further reviewed in the next phase, as mentioned in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marriott.
Yes, I'm just wondering if we could have a few more details on why the Saunders-Boston option is preferred. I realise that it's got planning permission and that if the other one with Barefoot Gillies was adopted, there'd be another 5 months probably delay. But as actually regards the layout, I mean, the Barefoot Gillies one is cheaper, not by a vast amount, but it is cheaper, and so I'd like some more detail on that, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor Marriott. So, cost is obviously important when we're talking about spending public money. For us, it was quite important. The time versus cost is quite important, though. So, for the additional cost involved, being able to start the project sooner, particularly in the context of local government reorganisation, for me and for us as a cabinet, it was really critical that we got a spade in the ground and got things started. In addition to getting things started, the cost of there's additional cost in starting the project later. The cost of materials are likely to rise if we start later as well. So I think these are the key sort of factors that determined the arriving at that particular option. I don't know if that was our decision-making process. If you want more technical from the officers, then happy to invite them in, or if you want a supplementary on that, if I haven't answered it sufficiently.
No, I just also, I take that in what you're saying, but also about in the actual layout of the Barefoot Gillies one, was that less appropriate than the one you're recommending?
Yeah, thank you. The layouts were a consideration. The option that we've adopted absolutely meets the criteria that the clubs needed. So for us, I think they were the steer for the ultimate decision, as well as financial one and the ability to be able to start sooner. So yeah, that was the rationale.
Thank you. Any further questions? I see no hands, so we'll open the debate then. 3 minutes per speaker as usual. Who would like to begin? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to thank the team for working on this. Chilton is actually the ward that I represent, and you know, there's been a lot of work and a lot of changes that have had to take place. I'd like to support the recommendations to move forward with this. The site is in great need of development. You know, it is ready and it is right to get on with this. The rugby club have been holding back on developments, repairs, changes. They're you know, really waiting and needing this. So I think it's time it's got on with. Many Chilton ward residents still are quite unaware of the project, even today. I had a conversation. So I'll be really looking forward to the communications, because there's a lot of people actually in Chilton that when I say shelf, they have no idea what I'm talking about, or about the pavilion or anything else. So it's quite important that we do that, but I'd just like to support this moving forward. Thank you.
Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. I too will be supporting this proposal. Clearly, all the work that has gone before, I'm not dismissing the work that's gone into this report, but this has been on the table for a long time now, and it's come to full council, I think at least 3 times in one form or another to get this far. As I said before, the design that is in option B has already got planning permission. That went through the planning process, and as Councillor Baker has said, this project is sorely needed, and it's been long awaited. And the community of Chilton is growing with the new housing that is surrounding it, and it's a very special place. I think it's got a great character, and I know I've harped on about the trees on Chilton Fields before, and it is a shame that we're losing those trees, and that was brought out in the planning committee, and I think, you know, part of this proposal that has already got planning permission includes a very lengthy condition about trees and what we're going to do to replace the trees that have got to go. And I'm worried that if we go through another planning process, will we still get that much protection for the trees? And they are special. It makes it a very different sort of playing field, having those banded trees. I think they are an important feature. And as I said, this has gone through all the stakeholder discussions with the sports clubs. They've been looking forward to it for at least 3 years, if not longer. And I think it's important that we do get a move on. And I think if we go for another design and it's got to go through that planning process again, it will open up a can of worms. So yes, I will be supporting this project, and I'm looking forward to the spade being put in the ground, and I'm looking forward to the pavilion, and I'm looking forward to having a decent cup of coffee there. Thank you.
Very good. Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll be supporting this recommendation as well. Stowmarket Cricket Club is one of the oldest cricket clubs in the country, founded in 1753. Stowmarket Rugby Club is relatively youngster, founded in 1883. So, in 8 years' time, it will be celebrating its 150th year as a club. Over not the years, not the decades, but the centuries, these clubs have provided a great opportunity socially as well as sporting. At present, the cricket club has got 3 weekend sides and a ladies' team and a flourish and youth section. The rugby club has got 3 senior teams, 2 league and a veteran team, that is, 5 junior teams, and 6 under 6 to under 12 teams, and the women's and girls teams. These are really very, very active clubs, and the facilities have been developed through really thorough consultation with these clubs. These are what the clubs are asking for, and to ensure their progression into the future. The sports club also hosts weekly park running, social runs, and live entertainment. It's as charity events, family celebrations, And I think the original planning proposal that we're recommending will actually provide a venue which will sort of really encourage what is the future activities. It'll give a focus for the community. I think this is a venue which has got an excellent track record, and it's an opportunity to support them with excellent facilities. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to contribute to the debate? Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I too will be supporting this. As a resident of Chilton, living where I do, very close to the high school, I'm very aware, having played cricket on the cricket field, having umpired there over the years, the facilities are in desperate need of an upgrade, so I welcome it. I welcome the increased level of inclusion, of activity for the health and fitness benefits that it will bring, additional people to Stowmarket, and that I welcome them to travel further into the town and enjoy the other facilities in Stowmarket. I welcome all of that, and I'll definitely be supporting it. My only concern, which fellow councillors do know, is the provision of parking, which it remains a concern, but I know is something that we are concentrating on. And also, I'd like to remind that we want to try and build as much sustainable transport into the plan as possible. Again, issues that my colleagues are fully aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lay.
Thank you, Chair. Start by thanking Councillor Warboys. I mean, hopefully you've just provided some of the answers to questions that may be featured at the next Stowmarket Mayor's quiz. So frantically note those down, if I may. There's two things I really just quickly wanted to say. I think the engagement with the clubs has been fantastic, so really looking forward to going to the next stakeholder meeting, because I think, rightfully so, clubs do get frustrated when things do take time. So I think they'll be really looking forward to this moving forwards. I'd also like to thank the officers for engaging with councillors, because one of the concerns I had initially was that a lot of the clubs were using facilities across wider, mid-Suffolk and Suffolk. So the concern really was, were we going to see, a kind of reciprocal arrangement? So I really welcome the fact that there is a plan to make sure that, Stowmarket and local clubs will sort of get, priority those provisions. But yeah, really well done. Thank you.
Councillor Hicks.
Thanks. It's sort of more of a comment or a question which you may want to answer outside of this, but I understand that the government today has said that they're going to institute Section 24 of the 2007 Act on Structural Changes Order, which means that because of local government reorganisation in our area, there will be restrictions on spend of over £1 million on capital. So will you be looking at this separately when that comes in, or will you try and get this through before then? How's that going to fit into that order, which comes in whenever there is local government reorganisation, that's coming in other parts of the country as well?
Councillor Weller.
Yeah, I think we are in debate, but I'm happy to answer it as a question. I'm embarrassed to say as a lawyer that Councillor Hicks is ahead of me in relation to that emerging legislation. So I'll need to take advice from officers in terms of how it's going to affect this project, but I'll take a close look at it. Yeah, obviously we'll endeavour to deliver it in spite of that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Winch, you were the second.
I don't think I've got much to say after what everybody's, the input we've already had. I just would like to reiterate thanks to officers, to Emily Atek and Lee Carvell for getting us to this position, because in the budget we did not include the pavilion because we thought the details weren't clear enough, the budget wasn't clear enough, and we weren't confident about timescale. And now I think we've got a proposal, apart from the little hand grenade that you've just thrown in, that we were pretty confident about the cost envelope and the delivery timescale. So thanks very much, officers, for getting us to this point.
Thank you. We will now move to the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Marriott, can I take your vote verbally? No, it's quite all right. Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, members. That's 30 votes for.
Now, item 11, exclusion of the public, is no longer relevant because we've dealt with items 12 and 13 in public session as well, so they're no longer relevant. Of course, item 14 is no longer relevant because we've not got to readmit the public because we didn't actually ask them to leave. So we're going to move very swiftly now to item 15, but after item 15 I am just going to have a short comfort break, and I'll tell you how long after item 15. So, item 15 is underwriting a funding gap for the Food Museum's branching out project, and the paper is MC/25/15. I'd like to invite Councillor Weller to introduce the report and to move the recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. As has been well publicised a couple of weeks ago, now the Food Museum has been very successful in being awarded National Lottery Heritage funding to be able to develop its, or to rather launch its branching out project. The branching out project involves the development of three key aspects of the existing premises at the Food Museum: the barn, which is the big medieval structure as you enter the museum, the Bobby factory, which is to the right as you enter the site, which has moved from the old Waitrose, second mention of Waitrose today, from the old Waitrose site in Bury St Edmunds, and then the house, the main house, as part of the property as well. The branching out project is to, for the first time in the recent history of the museum, it's not about repairing stuff that need repairing because it was in a state of disrepair. It's really about improving the facility for public experience, and all three elements do that. So the big sum of money that had been allocated earlier in the year by this council, £1 million to support that project, has been awarded. There is a shortfall in funding for this sum of 533,000. This is really because, to be absolutely frank, it's because the Food Museum believed that they wouldn't need to have all money available at the point at which they made the application to the lottery fund. They were told that they would need to have the full sum available. This was the amount in which they were short, and so they turned to the council to underwrite a loan, which is what we're being invited to vote upon today. Cabinet has already made a decision on it. We're asking you to support Cabinet's decision in that regard. This is a loan. This is underwriting a loan, should I say. The Food Museum expects to be able to raise the funds to be able to meet this shortfall themselves. So it's not expected that this loan will be called down, but in the event that it is, then we've got terms and conditions set out for the Food Museum to pay any part of it that remains a shortfall after their funding efforts. So this is the proposal that's before you, and I'm inviting you to adopt it in the way that Cabinet has as well, to ensure the future of the development for the Food Museum. So I'm happy to propose the recommendation and seek a seconder. Thank you.
Have a seconder? Councillor Lay, do you wish to speak now, or?
Happy to second, reserve my right to speak.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll now invite questions. Councillor Rowe.
As part of this includes a new space for like a bar and for community events and stuff like that, are we keeping an eye on how much they are meeting their kind of stated aim of promoting sustainable diets? Because I'm asking because I went to the beer festival the other week, and the ciders kind of weren't all marked as vegan. Some of them I know were vegan but weren't, and kind of I have concerns about the quality of information as well as how much they're tying everything into what they're saying their stated aim is. Like, I think it's a good idea. I think it's kind of really good that they're improving stuff and kind of going from strength to strength. But given what they're saying they're wanting to do, and also that they're a food museum, so you'd expect quite good information about the food they're providing. Yeah, do we have ways of keeping track of if they're managing that in this new space, which includes kind of a space for community events and food and drink?
Able to answer that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Rowe, for the question. We've spoken about this previously, and I know that Councillor Rowe, you've approached the Food Museum directly at my request in relation to that issue around the labelling of their food offer, and also conducting checks on their food offer in terms of identifying its source and labelling it appropriately, particularly in relation to, obviously they've got a legal statutory duty to do that in relation to food allergies and publish those. Not the same in relation to vegetarian and vegan options, but you'd hope, wouldn't you, that the Food Museum would want to provide some kind of a focus on that. And since you forwarded me the responses, or you've mentioned to me about the responses you've received from the Food Museums, I've given an undertaking to you to meet with the director to progress that matter.
Thank you, Chair. You say that the Food Museum is confident that they won't need to draw down on this loan. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is that confidence? Thank you.
Councillor Weller, I'm not sure if you can answer that question, but you may attempt it.
Thank you, Chair, for reading my facial expression. Yeah, I'm not a betting man, but I don't know whether or not any. Is anybody? I don't know if any of the officers are prepared to take a punt on a 1 to 10. I guess one being not very confident, 10 being more confident than maybe the Food Museum is. I don't know. Okay. Zoe's going to bail me out. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I have seen sight of their fundraising plan, and as officers we have. I met with Jenny only 2 days ago when we were talking about some really encouraging conversations she's been having with trusts and foundations only in the past week. And we feel very confident given their reputation. Remember, as an organisation, since 2016 they have brought in £8.2 million worth of external funding. So I think we have every reason to think that they will continue on that run. So yeah, we're confident. But I'm not going to give you a number, but we are confident. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Very good response. Are you okay with that? I think it gives us a reassurance that we need as members. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Watt.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I wasn't going to ask this question, but it's quite straightforward. Following on from Councillor Rose, when you do speak to the director there, could we also ask them if they could focus a bit more on organic, bearing the relationship that we have with organic food in this county? I think that there should be a little bit more focus. I'm just looking at their menu now. It's a good menu. It's a varied menu. There's no mention of organic. So I'd like you to, if that's possible, follow up on that for me.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Waters, for the question. I'm really happy to add that to the agenda for my discussion with Jenny. Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, something's just come back to me about the confidence in the fundraising and so on. Do you know whether the Food Museum, Stowmarket, has made progress in becoming the National Food Museum? I know that was an interesting difficulty when they were first changing the name, because there was another National Food Museum which was, however, in receivership. I just wondered whether that one had been bottomed out, because it seemed to me that the fundraising would get a lot easier if it was at the National Food Museum, which I know it aspires to be.
Are we able to answer that question?
Yeah, I'll certainly have a go. Thank you, Councillor Matheson, for raising it. The Food Museum's achieved national status. Colleagues are going to remind me the name of the... Yeah, national portfolio status. So I think in that regard, that's certainly helping it to achieve funding that it wouldn't otherwise have. So I don't know if that sufficiently answers Councillor Matheson's question, but you know, I wasn't aware of the other food museum. So, but maybe that's just because I'm local and don't know where obviously the food museum in Stowmarket is the one. Is R1, isn't it? So the other one pales into insignificance compared to ours. I don't know about it. Yeah, I don't believe there's another. There may have been at that time, but I don't believe there is now. There still is? You're telling me there is? Okay. Well, I'll yeah, we're gonna check about the other one, and we'll make sure ours is better in any case. Thanks.
Okay, any further questions? Right, okay, we'll move to debate then. Remind members you have 3 minutes each. Who would like to open the debate? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Weller, for the introduction. What I've got to say is partially debate, partially a question, but I thought it would probably fit better under debate. So, in principle, I'm happy to support this, particularly given the amount of funding that it will unlock for the Food Museum. The issue I've got, which I'm going to sort of propose as a potential amendment to the report, depending on if Councillor Weller accepts it, the issue I've got is just one of transparency around, or accountability around recommendation 3.2. Because giving £500,000, or as underwriting a loan of £500,000 is not an insignificant amount of money. And so I wonder whether, instead of delegating that for one of the senior officers and a cabinet member, we could ask that to come to cabinet, even if it's in private session or in a heavily redacted form, so that councillors have the opportunity to scrutinise it. Because I think there'll be questions around interest rate, repayment period if it is drawn down, and certainly I would feel much more comfortable voting for this if we did have that additional layer of security. So I'll leave that to one side, but otherwise, yes, I'm very happy to support what's the actual bulk of the content, but I would ask for Councillor Weller's perspective on that particular recommendation, if indeed it can be changed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Amendment, but Councillor Weller, are you prepared to accept that as an amendment?
My only reservation might be about... no, there wouldn't be a reservation on timescale because we don't expect them to call this down. So I suppose, I don't know if I can ask a question back to the question for clarity. Okay. In relation to why... I mean, what would be the reason for bringing it back as opposed to the arrangement set out? I mean, I don't think I've really heard a rationale for it other than a request for it.
What was here, but I'm quite happy for you to answer that, and then I think we need a decision.
Thank you. Yeah, just very briefly, what I'm asking is for it to come back not to full council, but just to cabinet, because presumably at the moment it says delegation to the Director of Places in consultation with Section 151 officer and the cabinet member to finalise the loan agreement. The bit I'm asking is I think it would be helpful for councillors to have an opportunity to scrutinise the detail of the agreement, if that makes sense. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Councillor Weller?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I understand this question more clearly now. I mean, I have to say, and I have said the same to officers and at Cabinet, that I'll be taking a very, very close look at details of the terms and conditions of that. I mean, I'm happy. I think because it's not bound by timescale, I'm happy for it to come back to Cabinet for a decision, but particularly, but I guess only if Cabinet don't trust me to make that decision on my own. But Cabinet are telling me they trust me to make that decision on my own. That's been seconded unofficially. Sorry, Chair. So I think I'm inclined to leave as is.
Are we okay to continue with debate now? That's an amendment, is it?
Or unless it's proposed as an amendment, so at the moment it wasn't accepted, so if it...
So it wasn't accepted as an amendment, so it needs to be proposed as an amendment. Is that an amendment?
No, I think it was a suggestion, so I'll withdraw. Yeah,
Okay.
It wasn't an amendment, so we can move on with the debate.
Councillor Mellon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I first remember coming to visit the Museum of East Anglian Life as it was then as a schoolboy, school trip, and they're still doing school trips now, and it's still a very great place to visit. The transition from the meal, as it was, to the food museum, I think is a good thing. I'm someone who's born and brought up in this part of the world. I worked in farming, and my career's been in that. I have a lot of interest in the kind of ephemera of that industry, and there's a lot of it at the museum. But I realise that has a kind of limited draw for people outside of this area maybe, and the museum needed to change and develop. And I think the change to food museum is a really good thing, and I think particularly the director, Jenny Cousins, is a real asset to the museum and to our district. So we know that the museum draws people into Mid-Suffolk and into Stowmarket, and people spend money. They spend money on food, they spend money on accommodation, and it's a boost to the local economy. And this programme of development, which is supported by our grant of £1 million that's already been approved, that is supported by the lottery funding, is really going to take the museum to the next stage and really improve the offer to visitors. I like the mention of organic. We are here in Mid-Suffolk, the place where the organic movement was founded with the Hawley experiment and Lady Eve Balfour. So we should draw on that heritage, I think, to draw people into the museum. What we're discussing today is simply the underwriting, the kind of bit that we kind of had to do to make the whole deal work. We really hope that they won't draw it down, or if they do draw it down, it will just be a loan. But I think we've kind of had to go above and beyond just to make the deal work. And I'm glad that we are doing that, because it has meant a huge amount of investment is coming to the museum and to our district. So I'll certainly be supporting this. Thank you, Chair.
Currently have 3 more speakers, Councillor Mansell, Councillor Baker and Councillor Rowe, in that order. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. Listening to Councillor Mellon, I too visited the Museum of East Anglian Life as a young child with my family. I think I was probably about 7. And I thought it was wonderful that there was an outdoor museum, because as a young child, museums, you know, you have this vision of them being stuffy old places. And I fell in love with the Museum of East Anglian Life as it was then as a child. And I think I'm really pleased to be supporting this, because I think we are enabling it to grow and to become something that is quite special. And I think this is almost like the third thing we've mentioned today, that is putting Stowmarket on the map. You travel around the country and you say you're from Stowmarket, and people don't know where it is. And we've now got the cycling event coming to Stowmarket. We're hoping that we're enabling the Food Museum to become something like the National Food Museum, whether that's its proper name or not, I don't know. But we're enabling it to put Stowmarket on the map. We've also been talking about the Chiltern Sports Pavilion, which is also putting Stowmarket perhaps more on a local map. And I think we should be enabling Stowmarket to become that special place. So I certainly will be supporting this. And I'd also like to agree with much of what Councillor Mellon has said about the current director. She's a breath of fresh air, and she's got so much enthusiasm for the whole project, and I really think that she can make it happen. But yeah, if all we've got to do is underwrite this amount of money and potentially be a loan just to enable that to happen, I think that's the least we can do. So I will certainly be supporting it. Thank you.
Chair. Yes, I'll be supporting this as well and sort of reiterate the comments from Councillor Mellon and Councillor Mansell. Stowmarket's becoming known for food and music, actually, with some of the other assets that are happening in the town, and it's growing and growing. We want to help the Food Museum to sort of achieve its goals. What we've noticed, though, is the Food Museum does, in the past, has operated in sort of isolation. It was kind of left on a limb. You know, things happen there and then don't feed into the town. I think now, you know, the town is becoming quite known for its food. We've got some really good venues and facilities and shops and things there along the food front, and obviously we have the Food and Drink Festival. I think there needs to be a link directly from them into all of these other venues and all of these other facilities. Local media has recently referenced Stowmarket as, you know, a really good sort of foodie place, so we want to pick that up. And in the paper it mentions partnership models. There's not a lot of detail to that, but I want to know how that's going to happen, because I think it's really important we capture that, especially with this investment. So, thank you.
Councillor Rowe.
Kind of following on from what Councillor Baker said, I think this is what their mother said. I think this is really good, because having seen from when I arrived, from when I started living in Stowmarket, where the museum kind of was very heavily reliant on volunteers, and it wasn't quite sure like how well it was going to do, and I've seen it go from strength to strength and strength, and this is like another bit in bringing in a building which kind of isn't really utilised in the way that it could be. So I think it kind of adds quite a lot to kind of the museum, and kind of in the broader thing we've seen from like the Stowmarket Culture Group, which then has like projects like Jubilant, which then has other schools from outside Stowmarket as well as schools from inside Stowmarket, and as well as kind of just supporting the broader heritage expertise in kind of the in the area, means that this will have kind of a broader benefit to mid-Suffolk and Suffolk more widely, as well as having a asset which people want to visit even more. So although I know in questions I kind of raised some concerns, I also do think it's a really, really good thing, and that kind of they have been doing some amazing stuff as well.
Thank you. Do I have anyone else? Councillor Penny.
Yeah. Knowing some of the trustees, I thought I ought to say a few words, or otherwise they'll wonder why I was so quiet. I agree with all the comments that have just been said. I think we're so lucky to have a possible national museum in our district, and I really feel we should do whatever we can to support it, as long as we can do so responsibly, which I think this does. For those of us who have attended our carbon training, we're aware of the very nuanced, interwoven aspects of our food production on our people, our farmers, our producers, our communities, and on our planet. For example, we know that the carbon footprint of importing an apple from the other side of the world is absolutely massive compared to that involved in its production. While the production of beef, for example, has completely the opposite story. Alongside that, though, there are the absolutely fascinating historical journeys and economic journeys, both local and global, that our farmers and our food producers have been on, along with all their problems and incredible advances in food production along the way. And there will be many, many more that they will face in the future as climate change becomes an ever greater risk to ourselves and our food production. What I'm really, really looking forward to is the educational aspect that the Food Museum will hopefully provide for all generations and all visitors to have a proper understanding of what our food production means for our people and our planet. Everywhere it's been and everywhere it will have to go to. And it seems to me the addition of underwriting this element of the project to receive the necessary funding is absolutely essential, if indeed it is needed, and I have no issues with supporting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers before I call on the seconder who has reserved their right to speak? Councillor Lay, would you like to speak now then, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief as I know you've promised us a comfort break. I just want to begin just by acknowledging the incredible work that's taken place at the Food Museum over the last 5 years, particularly since the pandemic started. I've said this before, but I think we are truly lucky to have the Food Museum in Stowmarket. Many museums across the country have closed for various reasons, so we're very lucky that ours hasn't had to shut its doors. A recent highlight for Stowmarket, and I think that stretches to mid-Suffolk, was the school dinners exhibition, which I know many in the room did have the opportunity to go to. There was copious amounts of national media coverage that came with that, so I think that gives us an example of what the Food Museum is capable of. It's had continuous issues with the buildings, some of which in the past were generously donated. Others have been restored and put together as best as they can be by the team over the years. The barn, for example, as mentioned in the papers, provides a wonderful and distinctive venue for events, making it especially suited for weddings. Being Stowmarket's oldest structure, it's clear when you stand in there and you can see the daylight coming through the roof. It needs some repairs to its internal framework. The Robert Bowby building, referred to in the papers as the factory, has been on its journey to find its true purpose for some time. Until now, it has mainly been used for storing equipment, leaving many who visit the museum to wonder how it fits with the broader experience. I had the wonderful opportunity to volunteer at the museum during the last restoration of Abbots Hall, and I think the amount of money that came in from the Heritage Fund at the time was a record for I think, definitely, I'd safely say mid-Suffolk, but I think for Suffolk, for a museum. Referred to as a house in the papers, the major efforts were directed towards the exterior, so I'm actually genuinely thrilled to see some improvements to the internal spaces come together, because it's going to knit the whole thing together. It will encourage visitors to dwell longer in the building, and I suppose I also welcome that anybody who's visited the Food Museum in the winter, you have to kind of go around icy puddles. So the improvements to the landscaping, and I know from a previous job supporting clients, in a wheelchair, the accessibility has always been an issue. So it's great to see some money come in with that. Last 2 points, because I said I'll be brief. Also pleased that the Food Museum is working alongside our council officers and cabinet members to develop some key performance indicators. As Councillor Baker sort of asked the question, the museum director does chair the Stowmarket Culture Group, so there are some foundations in place for wider Stowmarket. So I was truly delighted to learn that the Food Museum has successfully secured that 3.9 million of National Lottery Heritage funding, which equates to about 3/4 of the total funds that are needed for this branching out project. Very quickly then, Chair. Every confidence that they'll secure the rest of the funding, and I'm happy to support the recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Weller, do you wish to add anything further?
I'm conscious of your bladder, Chair, so perhaps we can just move on.
Okay. One of the things I'm conscious of tonight is there is a debate in Stowmarket as to which the oldest building, and I think St Peter and St Mary's Parish Church argues that it is, and the museum argues that they've got the oldest building. That might be a question in the Town Mayor's quiz coming up, but I'd love to know the answer. So I will now ask the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. The vote is now in progress. Councillor Marriott, can I take a vote verbally? That's fine. 4, no problem at all. Many thanks, members. That is 30 votes for.
Carried. We're now going to move to a short comfort break. I'll make the time 19:07. So could we reconvene at 19:20? And as per last time, I will start the meeting whether you're here or not. I think that gives you a pretty good time. Thank you. We move now to item number 16, which is councillors' appointments. Can I request a nomination for a disability champion, please? Yes, Councillor Overett.
Chair, I'd like to propose Councillor Carter. Although he's unable to be present today, I do know that he'd be happy to take on this role. I've had the pleasure of working with Councillor Carter for well over a decade through our Access for All campaign for Mid-Suffolk railway stations and as a member of the Mid-Suffolk Disability Forum, where he's Vice Chair. He cares deeply about disability rights and about improving quality of life and full access for people with disabilities, both visible and hidden. He's a passionate and dedicated advocate with some clear views on how Mid-Suffolk could do better. And I'm pleased to propose Councillor Carter as Disability Champion. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder, please? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I'm very happy to second, and if I can speak now, just to say that Councillor Carter, I know, will be a really tenacious advocate for the rights of people with disabilities and to make sure everybody is included. So I'm very happy to second.
Thank you. Are there any other changes to placings? Are there any other nominations for the position of Disability Champion? Okay. Okay, we'll now ask then the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now in progress.
Sorry, I think mod.gov has just frozen whilst we had the break. So can I vote manually for?
Thank you very much, councillors. That's 30 votes for.
Okay, we're now going to move to motions on notice, but can I remind members that according to the Council Constitution Procedure Rules, paragraph 17.4 of the Constitution, that speeches must be directed to the subject under discussion. So we move to 17A, which is the motion on notice from Councillor Harry Richardson. Can I invite Councillor Richardson to move your motion?
Thank you very much, Chair. And in doing so, I should just correct what I've noticed was an error in paragraph 4. It should read 6 rather than 2 when I'm referring to no idea what figure I was looking at when I wrote that. Thank you, Chair. So in proposing this motion, the government's recent spending review was a significant disappointment for local government and a missed opportunity for Mid-Suffolk. Spending reviews differ from budgets, of course, because they confirm a government's multi-year spending plans in a similar way to our 4-year outlook. A prudent government could have used a spending review to provide clarity and certainty on the future funding of local government and make meaningful investments in regional projects, which is what the last spending review did in 2021. Instead, our position is now less clear, less certain, less stable and less predictable. The absence, again, of a confirmed replacement for the new homes bonus and the expectation that local authorities increase council tax by the maximum amount available is of great concern for the status of Mid-Suffolk's own finances over the medium term. This, of course, has the potential to directly affect our residents and the services they access. The decision to deprioritise the East of England for infrastructure investment is especially frustrating, particularly as our region is expected to make significant contributions to the nation's energy generation. In addition, as Councillor Mellon mentioned in his leader's announcement, despite being given the go-ahead in October 2023, the spending review also failed to deliver the much-needed investment and upgrade in Hawley Railway Junction, which combined with the Ely Junction works would enable 2,900 additional freight services annually from the Port of Felixstowe, remove 98,000 HGV journeys per year from our roads, stimulate 277,000 extra rail passenger journeys per year, and reduce traffic congestion by an extraordinary 5.6 million hours per year, which is the government's own figures. The benefits of this to us here in Mid-Suffolk are self-evident, both in terms of quality of life and economic and environmental opportunity. The decision announced by the government subsequently to withdraw funding for the Neighbourhood Planning Support Programme is especially concerning. Combined with the changes outlined in the Planning Infrastructure Bill, which we debated back in April, this is a worrying sign of intent from the government about community involvement in future housing development. The ask of Council, therefore, is to reaffirm its view that prioritising administrative savings and efficiencies is preferable to service cuts or tax increases, and that we will engage with local and regional partners to continue to push for the very best possible deal for Mid-Suffolk's residents. I'm delighted to propose the motion, and I'm grateful to Councillor Hicks for agreeing to second it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Hicks, do you wish to speak now or later in the debate?
Reserve my right, please.
Thank you. Okay. So we now move to open debate. 3 minutes per speaker. Councillor Winch.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment to this motion.
Okay.
I think we're going to be displaying the rewording on the screen in a minute, just so people have members have a chance to review the detailed wording. But broadly, we agree with the thrust of this motion. We are very concerned about funding for local government, in particular for rural councils like Mid-Suffolk District Council. We are concerned about capital allocations ignoring much needed investment in East Anglia, particularly projects like Ely Hawley. And we are concerned about the decision to withdraw funding for neighbourhood development plans, particularly in the context of the Planning and Infrastructure Bill. If we want our residents to support increased housing development, we need to ensure communities have greater control over the process. So that's where we're starting from. However, there are a few elements of the current motion that we'd like to amend. When are we planning to do the display? When I've finished talking or... Okay. So, we've left paragraphs 1, 2 and 3 unchanged. And we have tweaked paragraph 4 to reflect our support for council companies in general, and to remove the reference to the greater than 2 million income for CIFCO, just because from our side, it's the net income that matters, not the gross. On the specific resolution points, we've slightly reworded Resolution 1 to reflect the need to maximise value for money combined with local accountability. We've expanded the bullet point covering neighbourhood development plans to be more in line with what we're planning to do. I don't believe this is controversial, but you can make your own minds up. And finally, we've changed the wording around lobbying central government MPs, etc., to reflect the fact that we'll continue to make representations rather than that we haven't already started. As an example, we submitted an extremely robust reply to the local authority funding reform consultation that was carried out earlier this year. The government's financial settlement is a major concern to this administration, and in our medium-term financial plan, agreed at the Council in February, we'd already envisaged a very difficult scenario moving forward. In that plan, we had assumed our grant funding would drop from 2.5 million to 0 between this year and next year, including the loss of the new homes bonus. However, whilst we've been prudent in a lot of the assumptions in our medium-term financial plan, we're now faced with a very much a worst-case type scenario. I think it's highly beneficial to have cross-party agreement that makes it clear to our residents that rural councils are not being fairly treated by the government.
I have a seconder for the amendment. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to second that. The wording in resolution number 1 was wording I would put forward as an amendment had it come forward in June. But I think basically, I hope all of us can basically agree with the preamble for paragraphs, and with this very minor change in wording, hopefully we can all agree going forward. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, do you accept the amendment?
Chair, can I request a very, very short adjournment, just because I've been informed members of my group can't quite see the wording.
We have paper copies.
We can do emails.
Okay. Could I suggest just so we can, because it is a very detailed amendment, but we just want to make sure that we're comfortable with the wording.
I'm happy for that. Can I suggest, is 5 minutes sufficient for members? Well, let's make it 10 then. Let's make it 10, but it is literally 10 minutes because I think we need to get on. So that's a request for paper copies for all members.
Paper copies, or we can do email copies immediately.
We can do email immediately, or you can have paper. You like paper? Okay. No, that's fine. Paper copies. Councillor Mansell?
Are we all getting the email copy so that we can all read it?
We can do
Not
both.
same. It's not the same.
Yeah, all members.
The one I've got is not the same.
How many we can print?
Okay. Members, I think we're probably ready to re-begin in order to save a bit of time. Councillor Richardson, do you accept the amendment?
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for allowing the brief adjournment. Yes, I'm happy to accept the amendment to the motion. If I can just add a bit of context in doing so, I do recognise that there have been recent developments since the motion was originally submitted back in June. So I do accept, obviously, that the Economic Strategy Action Plan came to Cabinet in early this month, which did include reference to the Hawley, Ely and indeed Thurston station upgrade. And, of course, the fact that there was the letter that Councillor Stringer, who I don't think is quite yet returned to the Chamber, about the neighbourhood planning support programme. So I recognise that some of the bits the reference in this motion had changed since it was originally submitted. So on that basis, yes, I'm happy to accept the amendment. Thank you.
Hicks, are you happy? Yeah. Okay. So the amendment now becomes a substantive motion. So we are now talking about the paper that you have received. So, Councillor Hicks, you're reserved your right to speak later in the debate. So I'll open the debate. Members have 3 minutes per speaker. Who would like to speak? Councillor Overwood.
Thank you, Chair. I consider this amendment is an improved version of the original and I have no objections to its content. There are many behaviours that this Labour government, following so smoothly on from the Conservative government that preceded it, that I object to. Actions that impact our residents' lives as much as do the concerns raised in the motion today. All of us could regularly bring forward motions to this council criticising government. Just 4 weeks ago, Councillor Hicks stood up and objected to my own motion, which was urging the County Council to be bolder in meeting its responsibilities to reduce the number of killed and seriously injured on our roads. He claimed, I quote, "This isn't the sort of motion we should have here. This is not a Mid-Suffolk decision. We should be focusing on things that our council can deliver." At the same meeting, he put his name to the motion again before us today. I was bemused at the level of mixed message here. Does Councillor Hicks want this council to raise motions about important matters outside of Mid-Suffolk's powers, or does he not? In seconding Councillor Richardson's motion and opposing my own, he seems to be holding both opinions simultaneously. However, I respect Councillor Hicks's intelligence too much to think that he would be unintentionally so contradictory. Of course, some decisions at both government and county level are so locally destructive that we should use our voice to speak out against them. But did Councillor Richardson or Councillor Hicks ever raise past motions objecting to the Conservative government's years of actions that so very seriously damaged Mid-Suffolk lives? Maybe the impacts of austerity, the two-child benefit cap, the destructive shift from disability living allowance to PIP. I don't believe they have, but if they can advise me to the contrary, then I might feel slightly less cynical about this motion. Regrettably, I've had to personally conclude that our councillors across the room proposing and seconding this motion seem to be playing a political game here in the interests of other matters than prioritising the best interests of residents. Therefore, I do not feel able to support this motion. It raises important issues that I do very much support, and I respect those that choose to vote for it. However, I consider it is unintentionally propping up the motivation of the original motion, which is not a political game I wish to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. I very much consider this to be a curved ball. If you look at bullet item number 2, if you support this motion, you're supporting a single unitary authority, because the sale pitch from Suffolk County Council is all about saving money. It's not about delivering value to the service. So you cannot support this motion on maximising value for money in support of not raising council tax to all frontline services, and then vote in another motion where there will be increasing costs undoubtedly, unless you go, or you go possibly going to the highest part or element of cost increase. So you can't vote for this and then in another motion vote for something completely opposed to bullet item number 2. I will not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Mansell.
Thank you, Chair. I actually agree with both the previous speakers, and I would just like to comment that I won't say what I would have liked to have said because I can't put it as politely and as eloquently as Councillor Everett, and I probably would have been rude. So I won't be voting for it, and I will keep my strong words to myself. Thank you.
Thank you for not being rude. Councillor Patchett.
Thank you, Chair. Again, in response to Councillor Lawrence, I'd just like to say that there is a difference between value for money and saving money. They are actually two different things, because value isn't just monetary, it's also can be social as well. So if we're seeking good value, that doesn't actually necessarily mean we're seeking to save money. It's getting better values in all aspects of the money we spend. If you could see it in that way, maybe not. But I think, in the room tonight, and this is not talking about this motion in particular, but how it was brought about, there's more than a whiff of hypocrisy here, because as I agree with Councillor Overett that this wasn't brought forward for the good and benefit of the people of Mid-Suffolk. This is just political point scoring, and then they just want to bring Conservatives and Labour into our conversation, because they're not massively represented here, and this is the way you get them represented. And I understand what I'm doing actually is by saying them is I'm playing their game. So what I would like to ask Councillor Richardson, we're not allowed to ask questions, but I'll ask him, maybe he'll answer it, is did he actually come up with this himself? Or, oh excellent, or is this actually just from deepest, darkest Tory HQ, the flavour of the month at the month that they just send around to all of their councillors that are sat in opposition? So he's saying yes, and he's saying it's his own words, but I'd be interested to know if this topic has popped up in other council chambers around Britain, and is it just the flavour of the month this month, but actually last month, but actually the month before, June? So it's already out of date and irrelevant, and this spending review is already in the local chip shop as a chip wrapper. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Penny.
I'm not sure of the procedure at all here, but in the light of Councillor Lawrence's comment, I wonder if we could amend the amendment to say social, environmental and financial value instead of value for money in point 2.
Proposing that as an amendment?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Baker. Okay. Councillor Baker, do you wish to speak now? So we're now moving to a debate on the amendment to the amendment, just so... Councillor Richardson, maybe I can make it easier. Do you accept the amendment to the amendment?
No, I don't think I do.
No.
It's also the person that proposed the amendment needs to agree the amendment to the amendment.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Okay. So,
it's for Richard.
A point of order, Chair. Can I just check? Did the proposer and the seconder of the amendment to the motion also need to accept it?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what you've got to do?
Sorry. That's what I was going to say.
I accept this, that's fine.
So they accept it. So it's now as amended amendment. I think, isn't it still Councillor Richardson motion, isn't it? I think we're debating the amendment. Absolutely.
clarification. You do like to make it really awkward for me, don't you? So we now need to move to debate on the amended to the, which Councillor Penny and Councillor Baker have proposed. So who would like to speak on that? Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think that is a splendid minor amendment to the motion, to the amended motion, and I hope that Councillor Winch will be able to accept it if he hasn't already.
Councillor Winch has accepted, haven't you? Councillor Winch, would you like to clarify?
Yeah, I have accepted. I sort of feel we've reached a point where we've defined this amendment now, and I think we should move forward because we're getting stuck here. We've really got an important item that we need to debate in a little while.
Who wants to talk on this debate?
Councillor Lawrence.
I'd just like to make the point, I don't know what we're voting on now.
Okay, so my understanding is we now need to vote on the amendment because Councillor Richardson hasn't accepted the amendment.
I think it would be worth clarifying what the amended motion is, so that everybody knows what they're voting on, given that we've had.
You could just remind us what your change was to bullet point 2, if you would, so
yes,
then we can be clearer.
In bullet point 2, if the words value for money could be replaced by social, environmental and financial value.
Okay, thank you. So are we now clear what we're voting on? Yes? Okay, so now I need to ask you to... Yeah, I'm now going to ask the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the vote on that amendment.
Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Warboys and Councillor Marriott, can I take your votes verbally, please? We're still waiting on your votes on the amendment. Sorry. Just a change of wording, yes.
Councillor Warboys, are you for? Yes. We can take a verbal vote.
Yeah. Social, environmental and financial value. That is 22 votes for, 7 against and 1 abstention. That becomes a substantive motion.
Debate No, Councillor Hicks, you haven't had your... Councillor Marriott.
I'm not really happy with the bit in it about reiterating our report for our wholly owned commercial companies, and because, as Councillor Patchett pointed out earlier, there was a very small profit made, and whilst I appreciate we're going to still hold on to these companies, I don't see why we actually need to reiterate our support for them. And the other point was that I didn't realise that SALC were a planning authority. Perhaps they are, but I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else before I call on Councillor Hicks? Councillor Hicks.
Thanks. I think it's really important that at Mid-Suffolk we remember that we have a Labour government who came to office just over a year ago, and I remember Keir Starmer standing on the streets of number 10, sort of brimming with confidence and telling the whole nation how things were going to change for the better. And we have to remember that the Labour government are the organisation, or the government, that fund Mid-Suffolk District Council. So it's only right that actually we communicate with them, write to them, and actually call out when central government is not giving Mid-Suffolk and the wider communities what they deserve. And that is what is behind this motion. We have seen over the last year and a bit the Labour government come in and have massive impact on the farming community of Mid-Suffolk District Council. We need to remember there are farmers out there who are now really stressed about how they're going to hand on their farms to the next generation. That is absolutely discussing what is happening in Mid-Suffolk today. National insurance increases, again, have real impact on businesses across Suffolk. There are businesses I know I was only in one on Tuesday in Debenham, where they have stopped recruiting staff because of what has happened with national insurance, because they can't afford to do the national insurance and recruit more staff. Again, a government decision having impact here directly in Mid-Suffolk. Again, Ed Miliband is gleefully going around approving solar panels going out on agricultural land across the country. And that is, again, impacting here directly in Mid-Suffolk. So I think this motion before us is about holding Labour to account. It's about actually calling out when we have the same self-inflicted policies that are being delivered through government via taxation that have direct impact here in Mid-Suffolk District Council. So I thank Councillor Winch for the amendment. I think the amendment, we've had a good look at it, and I agree with you. I think it's an amendment that's appropriate and is right, and I'm very happy to support your proposal. And I think it is really important that when central government doesn't deliver for Mid-Suffolk in so many ways, and particularly our businesses, our residents, and what's happening to our agricultural land, it's only right we call it out. So I won't be supporting the amended amendment, but I would have supported your amendment originally.
Okay, I'm now going to ask the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the electronic vote.
So, members, this is the vote on the amended motion. Harry gets a chance to sum up.
Councillor Richardson, apologies, did you wish to say anything further before we move to that vote?
No, you can go straight to the vote.
My apologies. Okay, so we're now voting then.
Just be clear, we're voting on the amended amendment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Members, that is now in progress. Councillors Matheson and Marriott, am I able to take your votes verbally, please? Okay. Against it, no problem at all. That is 13 votes for, 13 votes against, and 4 abstentions. Now go to a chairman's casting vote.
I am going to use my casting vote for.
That motion is carried.
Okay, right. Perhaps we won't have quite so much of a problem with 17B. Who knows? Who knows? So this is a motion on notice from Councillor Mellon. Councillor Mellon, can I invite you to move your motion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Although it said in the agenda it was going to be proposed by Councillor Winch, I wasn't expecting to be here this week, but I am, and I'm happy to propose this motion. Councillors will be very aware of the Labour government's plans and ambitious timetable for devolution and local government reorganisation. Now, those who've been in local government for longer than me have seen this before and will report wearily on previous plans, dead ends and proposals which came to nothing. But this time, as I've said previously, I think we can be confident that change is coming, and we can either resist that change and have it forced upon us, or we can embrace the opportunity and seek to steer it to a better end. And I think if we do that, eventually there may be substantial benefits. But let's first acknowledge that reorganisation is unsettling, it's difficult, it's contested, and even when the way forward eventually becomes clear, the transition will not be easy and things will take some time to settle down. So for our residents and communities, and for us as councillors, and particularly for officers right across local government in Suffolk, this is a disconcerting time, and we should acknowledge this as we carry the uncertainty over the next few months. Now, back in March, Council debated and agreed an interim plan for multiple unitary councils, 2 or 3 for Suffolk, which was submitted to government on the 21st of March. Now, we received feedback on that interim plan, which did not rule out the multiple unitary pathway and encouraged us to develop our plans further. And there have been further pieces of advice provided since then, either in correspondence from the Ministry or in meetings with ministers and civil servants. So the 4 district councils and the Ipswich Borough Council have worked together to develop our proposals since March, but we always knew that the government requires a single proposal. So there had to be a point where we focus our efforts on one proposal, either 2 or 3 unitaries. And that moment is now. And this motion seeks to direct our efforts, alongside the other local authorities, to developing a full business case for 3 unitary councils. Now, that full proposal will come to Council for debate and hopefully approval at our September Council meeting. So today's decision is not the final one, and in fact members could vote one way today and then take a different view when they see the full business case and agreed maps in September. But what I hope we can get today is a decision to support development of that 3 unitary proposal, and let me explain why I am proposing this. Firstly, size. Our proposal would result in 3 councils of just over 250,000 residents each. But obviously with housing and population growth that we know is coming, those numbers would go up substantially over the next few years. Now, I accept this number is clearly well short of the government's figure of a population of 500,000 for new unitaries. And that criterion was clear until it wasn't. And the government has steadily backed away from that figure, and I think with good reason. The average size of existing unitary councils across the country is around the 250,000 population mark, and a lot of those are in urban areas. Rural unitary councils of that population are large, and they're substantially bigger than our current district. Now, secondly, representation. We know that reorganisation will reduce the number of councillors representing communities. Now, if you total up all the district, borough and county council members in Suffolk, there are currently 308 councillors, a few of which are double hatters, including 3 of us here this evening. Now, everyone accepts that this number will go down, but slashing the number down to a minimum is not, to my mind, a virtue of reorganisation. Angela Rayner trumpeted we would have less politicians, but our councillors are, I think, less politicians and more community champions. We're local representatives and we're the voice of our wards. And residents appreciate and value that local connection and that local accountability, which is best delivered in smaller unitaries with more councillors. And thirdly, feedback from residents. The survey that we've been running since May has so far had just under 2,000 responses. Now, this was not asking people to give us their answer as to the number of unitaries, but to rank in priority what attributes of local government they thought were important. And consistently, right across the different parts of the county, so far, the first priority has been this: being local, ensuring decisions that affect you and where you live are made close to you by councillors and a council that understands your needs and represents your area. I will do. Thank you, Chair. To sum up, I believe that 3 councils would best reflect the different parts of our county, retain a sense of place and identity for each, and would be large enough to deliver, but small enough for people to connect with. This motion is asking for a decision to move forward with the business case for 3, and I ask members to support it. Thank you.
I have a seconder. Councillor Stringer, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
I'd like to reserve my right. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right, so we now open up the debate. As usual, 3 minutes. Councillor Lawrence first and then Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. We all know that desired answers can be achieved by the way the questions are framed. Mid-Suffolk District Council survey questions generally relate to local representation, so that's the answer you got. Suffolk County Council surveys all relate to money saving and not actually being local. So that's the answer they will get, the savings achieved. I'm disappointed that we are only being asked to consider this motion with no knowledge of where the boundaries will be. I'm also disappointed that we're only being given one option, like it or lump it. In my view, if we wanted to be democratic, we should be looking at 3 motions on this subject. 1 for a single unitary, 1 on 2 unitaries, and a 3rd on 3 unitaries. We're only being given one option here, either for or against, and I believe that is undemocratic. Thank you.
Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair. If it's helpful, what I'll do just very briefly is set out where I stand on the broader question of local government reorganisation. I prefer 1. I'd be happy with 2, but I'm implacably opposed to 3. That's just... for the avoidance of doubt, you'll be pleased to know that's the last time I intend to reference 1 unitary, because whilst I agree with almost everything Councillor Lawrence said, we did have that debate back in March. The Council voted for either 2 or 3, so we don't, in my view, don't need to revisit that element of the debate. However, having said that, what I think is frustrating is the lack of information that we have here today, because we have been told in the email that prefaced this motion that there was new financial data showing that the 3 option would be viable, but we haven't seen it. We don't, as Councillor Lawrence rightly said, we don't even know where the boundaries are going to be placed. But we do know that that work has been done. And the district and boroughs have already drawn lines on a map, and they are choosing, and it is a choice, not to tell us. And I know this is the case because the leader of a neighbouring district has been briefing opposition councillors on it and has shared it with me. And I shall read it to you, and this is the text from what the leader had said. 3 means a south area, brackets Ipswich and Felixstowe. an eastern area, brackets Lowestoft and Stowmarket, and a western area, brackets West Suffolk, plus Sudbury, and over to encompass Thurston. Now, this raises a number of questions for me. First, on principle, why am I, as the ward member, finding out about Thurston moving into West Suffolk on the grapevine? Second, do you mean Thurston the parish or the ward? Third, have you asked Thurston Parish Council how they feel about moving from a local government area that has a 5-year land supply into one that doesn't? Fourth, what does this mean for other communities in our district, such as Elmswood and Woolpit at one end and Claydon and Great Blakenham at the other end of the district? All of these questions, I suspect, will not go answered this evening, which brings me then to my last question, which is how can we support this motion when we are not being told what we're voting for? The answer to that question is, I think, simply we can't. And yes, I accept that we are just endorsing the principle of 3 with a further business case to follow, but let's not forget our September meeting is the day before the deadline. We will be shown a fait accompli at that meeting with no time to change anything other than a typo. So this is the real opportunity, or could have been a real opportunity, to have a serious debate about the future of our district, because that's what this 3 option does. It partitions mid-Suffolk. But instead, we just don't have any of the information available to us as councillors to make an informed decision, which I think is the very basic thing we are here to do. So on that basis, I am wholly opposed to this and will not be voting in favour. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Marriott.
I agree with what both of the last speakers have said. I think we as councillors, certainly opposition councillors, haven't had enough information to make a sensible choice. And it's really not just a choice for us, it's a choice on behalf of our parish councils, on behalf of the people in our area. And there are a lot of other factors which would influence that. Amongst them would be council tax, for example. The people in my area of Blakenham moving into a greater Ipswich, it's very likely that they would pay a vast increase in council tax. And I'm sure there are lots of other factors that are relevant. I feel that we have been overlooked and we should have been better informed. And currently I would vote against. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett.
Chair, fellow councillors, I actually do agree with all the points that the previous 3 have actually just said. And council tax, actually, I think will only go up because they will equalise it, and they won't equalise it down, they'll equalise it up. Anyway, so everyone's going up for everyone. So, councillors, tonight, we debate a topic that cuts to the heart of how we serve our communities, local government reform. Let me be clear that reform is not a luxury, it's a necessity, because while our communities evolve, our structures too often remain stuck in the past. And if we care about delivering better services, if we believe in genuine local democracy, if we want value for money for our residents, then we must be open to reform. Across the country, councils are under immense financial pressure. We're being asked to do more for more people with less money, yet our structures, multiple tiers, duplicated functions, outdated boundaries, they're all holding us back. We've seen it ourselves as councillors, residents confused about which council does what, overlapping responsibilities between districts and counties, delays in decision making because accountability is split. So I will concede that I think Councillor Hicks's views that he may be right, that a single unitary would save the most money. They say 26 million per year after 5 years. But at what cost? We've seen no evidence from the one unitary side, no breakdown of how that money is saved, just glossy leaflets. Wave them if you got them, I know you've all brought them. Funded by Capsule. Is this a shell organisation? Who funds them? Is it taxpayers' money? These are valid questions and we deserve honest answers. Because, let's be clear, in a service-driven sector like local government, there is only one way to save that kind of money. Cut staff, cut services. And services are already on a knife edge. Let's just look at Send. What's the deficit now? 166 million? More? So forgive me if I take no lectures from Conservatives about money. Nationally, they've left us with 22 billion black hole after 14 years of chaos, and locally, hundreds of millions in debt after 8 years of Tory financial ruin in the county council. This one council proposal is not about better government, it's about centralisation dressed up as efficiency. What we need is more localism, not less, and yes, that might cost a little more. But if it means better, more responsive, more tailored services, then I'm proud to pay that price. Because I'll tell you what happens in one crowded chamber with one oversized authority. Stowmarket, I'm winding up, last paragraph. Stowmarket, Thurston, they don't even get a mention. They get lost, their voice is drowned out. So let's not fear the word reform, let's shape it. Colleagues, I support reform, not for its own sake, but because our residents deserve the best. Let's be bold enough to build it. So I say this, I vote for localism, I vote for 3 councils.
Thank you. Councillor Rowe.
I agree that it's important for people to kind of have a say about kind of what they think of kind of a 3 council proposal, and kind of because there'll be time before once we've made this decision, I'm sure that kind of the council will be receptive to comments received. I think that kind of we need to look at how we communicate with our communities to go, we have looked at 3 and kind of, it's not necessarily fixed, as I don't think it would make sense to be definitely fixed for the maps. There's numbers need to be equalised, and we need to make sure, as has been mentioned, we're putting something forward that all of the all the districts and the borough speaking as one, to have the strongest possible chance that the government will kind of actually listen to us. And speaking earlier to when there is an event at the marketplace, I was asking questions about what sort of what sort of rigour there would be in different councils, and I think 3 will mean that people get the best chance of putting forward their local voice, and us not losing kind of services across the whole of Suffolk. And for example, with council tax, that means that it's agreed over a smaller area, so hopefully there'll be more local decision on council tax. So yeah, I think I will agree, I will vote for this, but I also think it is important that we listen to kind of people over the next month before the final bit comes to full council.
I have 3 speakers, and in order they are Councillor Winch, Councillor Mansell and Councillor Hicks. And then I have Councillor Baker. And then Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Winch.
Right. My starting point for local government reform would have been to have a look at some of the things that's making the sector completely financially unsustainable, like adult social care, children's services, homelessness and council housing. But it doesn't really matter what I think about the approach that we've taken. The Conservative administration of the County Council has put us on a fast track for local government reform, and at the moment a fast track for being one big unitary council, unless we're very careful. There isn't really any evidence from elsewhere that large councils deliver better quality services at a lower cost. And we'd end up here in a unitary model with a mayor, a leader of Norfolk and a leader of Suffolk, with a combined population of 1.7 million over 3,500 square miles. That doesn't sound like local government to me. Now, the most obvious counter-proposal would be to split Suffolk into 2. And this has advantages of scale and keeping the district council boundaries. But I think we need to step back from the details of the fray. We're making a decision for 50 years, not 5. Not for the next election, but for where our children are going to be. We're currently seeing a breakdown of trust between the population and politicians of all parties. People feel they have little control over their lives, and we need to ensure that residents have a meaningful sense of place and identity to support local democracy, whilst ensuring we provide efficient services. The three-unitary model also recognises the different needs of a major city like Ipswich. The three-unitary model already has the support of the other district and borough councils in Suffolk, and is likely to be the model proposed by the majority of districts and boroughs in Norfolk. We'd end up with a mayor plus 6 unitaries, 2 of which represent our major cities and the rest representing areas of larger towns, market towns and villages, a much more balanced structure for the long-term future of the area. This motion is asking you to vote in favour of producing a proposal for a three-unitary model. I understand where's the map, where's the finances, and these issues take a lot of time to work through. But it's asking you to it's not asking you to confirm support for a specific motion. You'll be asked to do that in September, and you may vote in favour today and against in September. The decision is going to be made by the government, and the people of Suffolk won't be asked. Yep, 30 seconds. The Conservative-dominated County Council decided they didn't want residents to have a say when they cancelled the county elections. What we're arguing about here is ensuring there's a viable alternative proposal with support from all districts and boroughs so the government will have a real choice. For a decision of this magnitude, probably one of the biggest ones we're ever going to make, it would be incredibly disappointing if we didn't make sure the government had a difficult decision to make.
I'm going to call 2 more speakers, and I'm probably going to need to go for the guillotine. So, Councillor Mansell, you're first.
Thank you. I'd just like to really point out that we're not doing this out of choice. This decision is being forced upon us. And it's not the panacea that people are making it out to be. You know, I'm sorry, but special educational needs and adult social care are vast drains on any finances of any council, and splitting us into 1, 2, 3 or 6 unitary authorities is not going to solve that problem. What we really should be doing actually is having a motion to write to the government and tell them to fund adult social care and special needs properly, rather than this hodgepodge. Oh, let's make a unitary authority and everything will be better. I agree there are advantages to having a unitary authority, and I think I think that 1 is too few. 3 is probably better than 1, but maybe I would have gone for 2. But I think that we need to credit the work that has been done by the leaders of the districts and boroughs in the county that have already been working together and are all agreeing, have come to a compromise agreement, if you like, to make this proposal to drop the business case for 2 unitaries. It's not going to be our decision as to how many unitaries we end up with in Suffolk. That will be the government who make that decision. All we are voting on today is whether we want the officers of the districts and boroughs to work up the business case. So I will be supporting this because I certainly think that 3 is better than the only other alternative I've been told about, which is 1. But we're not here to make the decision. It's actually of what's going to happen, and it's not going to solve the big problems of local government. But we're being forced to do this, so let's make the best of a bad job.
Thank you. Councillor Hicks.
Thank you very much. So I'm a great believer that it's really healthy that we all have differing views, and I think this is a really good example of where we do. But Mr. Chairman, before us is a motion that is so lacking in detail, it has no data, has no maps, and in essence, the council is being asked just to purely trust that the motion is correct, but it's going to make a once-in-a-generational change. Let me just say that again. We're being asked to make a once-in-a-generational change with no data, no detail, no maps. In fact, with nothing. Councillor Mellon circulated an email a few days ago saying that the 3 councils would be affordable. Okay, thank you for that. So could you just show us the detail and elaborate on what you mean? How can we judge if you share no data? Would you go out and put an offer on a property to rent or buy and have no idea on the cost of running the property, no idea on the size of the property that you were going to purchase or rent, and in fact no idea how big the garden may or not be. Why would you support backing a proposal where we have no idea of the costs, the boundary? In fact, I cannot think of a single occasion ever when we would go as a council to agree something with zero data. I don't think it's ever happened. Now, why, I ask, are these figures hidden? Why are the boundaries hidden? How far east or how far west will the unitaries go? Is it true, the rumours out there, that Needham Market and Henley have been given away to the greater Ipswich area? Is it true? What else is being traded away for the benefit of the new unitary? We don't know. So either the administration doesn't have the figures and doesn't have the boundaries and is just making this up as we go along, or you have the figures, you have the boundaries, and you're deciding you don't want to be open to scrutiny and to share it with this meeting and with the public. And I'm not really sure what is worse. Now, I'm really clear. I'm a twin hatter. I've sat in this council for 12 years, and I've been at the county council 14 to 15 years, and I've sat on the county council as well. And I'm really open and I'm clear. I support one Suffolk and one unitary. I believe the three councils are financially dangerous, irresponsible, and would deliver far worse services. But I'm really hugely disappointed that today we're being asked to make a decision with no facts, no figures. How can it be an informed choice whether we want 1, 2, or 3? We have no detail. The details have been hidden from public scrutiny. One Suffolk would be smarter, it'd be simpler, it'd be better and safer for Suffolk's residents. It reduces bureaucracy, it reduces duplication. It reduces and makes delivery of frontline services better, more efficient and locally visible. You may not agree with 3 unitaries. You may not agree with 1 unitary, I accept that. But for me, to vote for 3 unitaries with no detail is an uninformed choice because we have no information to help make that decision. It's fundamentally wrong to make a decision with no data, no detail, no boundaries on a once-in-a-generation decision.
If I can explain the guillotine, it is necessary now to extend the meeting. Can I have a proposer to extend the meeting? Councillor Stringer, can I have a seconder for that? Numerous seconders. You want to vote on that? Right.
You need to be specific about how long you want the joint extend to the end of the council business.
We need to be specific, so I think we need to extend this to the end of the council business because this is the last part of the business of the night. So are members in favour of extending the meeting, understanding that we will reach the end of this motion? That is carried. Okay, we now move on then, safely. Councillor Baker, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start to provide a little bit of reassurance here, and I appreciate there is anxiety around this. There hasn't been a great timescale for this whole sort of initiative that's taking place, and I've had a lot of worry. I'm a double hatter, like several people in the room. The information, you may feel that the administration is holding information back. They're not. We don't have that either. It's still being worked on. There's information still being developed. So I want to give you complete guarantees, and I can personally guarantee that everybody in this administration has integrity, so they would not be doing things sort of underhandedly in any way, and I can guarantee you that. The other thing I just want to say is that I was going to abstain today because I'm a double hatter, and I feel very conflicted. But actually, now I've given it some thought, I think every single one of us have conflicted with this debate because, this impacts us all quite significantly in one way or another. So actually, I will take part in the vote today, and I will be supporting this. I've had in excess of 20 years in local authority in one way or another, and I've had sort of experience in the larger organisations and in Mid-Suffolk, which is a smaller sort of organisation. And I know how difficult it is to communicate, and when you're trying to communicate and work across a county as wide, and how you're trying to deliver services so widely, and I know how difficult it is for officers to do. In comparison, I've actually seen how they operate in district, where it's a much smaller area, and actually we can get hold of people really easily. We know who we're working with. You know, it's easier. And I've experienced this, and I've had that benefit in the last sort of year and a half. The other thing is around collaboration. You know, one thing I was quite regretful of is that we were not collaborating as much as I wanted to about this. And actually this has started to come together. So now district are collaborating with the other district councils and the other borough councils. And this is where we need to be. We need to be collaborating together. We all need to know our areas. We know our areas really well. We know our residents really well. And this is why it comes down to being local. You know, we can support people, whereas I don't know people across the county. I know people here, where I live. Mass savings, the devil is always in the detail. You know, there's always going to be a loss when there are mass savings. So I'm always very sceptical about those large figures, and we need to get it right. Parish councils cannot pick up any slack. And you know, they don't have, you know, with all respect to all of the work that they do, they don't have the infrastructure, the training, or necessarily the experience of all of the other people that work. So, you know, I'd be very concerned about parish councils having to pick up the work when, you know, a larger organisation is having to operate. And, you know, we need to allow for growth. So this is the other thing for the three councils. So I will be supporting this today, however conflicted I may be with everybody else. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman said earlier this week on the Telegraph podcast that Angela Rayner's changes to local government are horrific. I quite agree. The majority of county councillors, however, eagerly embraced Labour's suggested fast-track move to unitary and a new regional mayoral setup. The county's concept of local democracy for Norfolk and Suffolk is just one mayor and 2 mega remote unitary councils for this whole region of nearly 2 million people. That would be much more remote and less accountable to residents. To me, it feels more Soviet Union than British. So I'm with Suella with this. I wish we'd all stood firm against this reorganisation, but now we are where we are. We're faced with a binary choice of supporting either 1 mega unitary for Suffolk or 3 new unitaries for Suffolk. 3 would still be a large by district scale, but much more local and more accountable than just 1. We're told that with 1 unitary, all the present councils will be abolished. But in fact, nothing about the current county council would really change. 1 unitary for Suffolk is simply bolting onto present county council and many district services. Many residents, when surveyed, put being local as their key priority. Now, I read that as being our residents actually expressing a preference for the status quo, but it's certainly not for just 1 remote unitary. Currently, there are over 300 county and district councillors, with 3 unitary councils, each with, say, 65 councillors. Representation will be halved, workload will increase, but it still remains a decent number of local champions in what are still local unitary councils. A single unitary, by contrast, could have 140 councillors if they double up the current county divisions. Can you just imagine such a council meeting where every member could speak for 3 minutes on any report? Chaos, eh? The Welsh Synod has 60 members. The Scottish Parliament has just 129 MPs. 1 unitary council would be like a mini parliament version of Westminster, far too big for even this council chamber. Yet make the overall number any smaller, and the resulting councillor workload would make the role unsustainable for most working people. It would drastically reduce the pool of people willing to carry out the role. They would simply be just either active retirees or younger people with a wider political ambition. We will lose many that, like most here today, just want to be local champions who are simply passionate to represent and stand up for their residents' interests. So in conclusion, I fully agree with Suella Braverman that this local government reorganisation by Labour is horrific. It is vandalism of local accountable representation. But faced with a binary choice of either 1 or 3 unitary councils for Suffolk, neither's great, but 3 is far, far preferable to 1 mega remote unaccountable entity. Thank you.
Thank you. So I now have Councillor Davis first, and then Councillor Penny, and then Elkin.
Apologies again for not being able to sound. Thank you. I agree that 3 unitaries is the ideal for managing and providing service as our people expect it. For this motion today, we all know 3 unitaries is bigger than a district. And I get, in my role as district, I get to still see people in person. Discussion is very clear, and local knowledge is key to our decisions. We would not get that in a mega council. For this motion today, I do not need to know the detail. I just need to know that it's a size that can be providing the service as we want it to be provided. However, boundaries are not just about population. They're about balance and the ability for populations to thrive. We need to review and look for a balance of assets, of production, of business, of service, of community and identity. Therefore, I know we're not allowed to ask a question, but here today I would like to ask our leader to confirm, will our business case presented to us in September contain further input from our public, and that our councillors will be given the facts and figures demanded and are necessary to enable an informed vote come September?
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Mellon may like to respond to that at a later point. So I now call on Councillor Penny.
I'd like to thank Councillor Baker for her comments, because I am one of the conflicted. And I'd also like to thank my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Whitehead, for giving me the courage to vote in favour of a 3 unitary authority. Before this debate, I had considered abstaining. I am not in support of a single unitary authority because I believe in local democracy, which a single unitary authority does not deliver. Fundamentally, I can't see why government would seek to dismantle an award-winning council. But I do appreciate that there is an opportunity to rationalise services if it's done well. I am extremely annoyed with the fear-mongering and misinformation being spread among my communities about issues that would not make any difference whether we were a single unitary or a multiple unitary authority. So I thank my colleagues for debating this issue, and I have made up my mind to vote in favour. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. I just will try not to repeat things that have already been said, but I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I heard Councillor Lawrence's concern that, the survey questions you ask shape the answer. And I did read our survey questions pretty carefully, and I was pleased to see that they did ask a pretty broad range of things. They asked about whether people wanted local services. They asked about value for money. So I think it was all in there, but from what I understand of the results that we have so far, which I know aren't complete, it was pretty consistently showing people wanted local representation and accountability, and that was a priority. I heard people's concerns that they weren't getting enough information, and I feel sad about that, and I hope that's something that we can perhaps improve on going forward. Councillor Hicks was obviously very upset that we are hiding things and not sharing information. I'd just like to share that I had a message this morning from a resident saying, have you seen this pink thing? What is it all about? Who are these people? They seem to be pushing One Suffolk. Is it something to do with the council? So it does concern me that the county council, who are behind the pink leaflet, it's not apparent to residents that that is a very strong campaign on behalf of the county council pushing a particular view. So I think there's a little bit of lack of transparency there as well. People have talked about the importance of value for money. I know we receive a stipend as district councillors, and I'm very grateful to have it, but I think if I worked out what I was paid per hour, I would probably cry. And I think it doesn't matter what side of this room you're sitting on, I think a good councillor is worth, I think the value that we give to our communities, I'd like to think, is that we are actually incredibly good value for money. And I think cutting us out would be a sad loss, actually. So I will be voting for this. I share lots of the other concerns people have expressed, but I think that 3 unitaries is going to be small enough to give people the local representation and connection that they keep telling us that that's what they want. But I think they will be big enough to be efficient and sustainable and to provide services at the right scale. And I also think there's the slightly bigger picture that having 3 representatives from Suffolk, 3 potentially from Norfolk on the combined mayoral strategic authority would again give a more localised voice in that also very important body. So I will be voting for this. Thank you.
Councillor Castle.
Thank you very much. I'm quite sad that I have to make this decision in the today. I'm in favour in this case of 3 unitary councils, because Suffolk has areas that have unique identities, and residents don't want remote representation. They want us to maintain these relationships we have with local businesses, parishes and local groups, and we need to support these distinct areas. Smaller councils can plan with a deep knowledge of the area's needs. They're more versatile and quicker to react on local issues and manage risk. Budgets are more transparent, and I believe that councillors can remain accessible. They are still able to work together on county-wide challenges. I'm not a fan of centralisation and larger authorities because they reduce the weight of individual votes. One size fits all misses targets, and it breeds defensive government culture and short-term views on issues. I'm a local councillor and I work by feedback from my area. The larger that area is, the harder that job is. I feel that a super council is not delivering on democracy, and that's what makes this country great and is admired around the world. Let's not do this just because it's cheap. The 3 gives us more councillors, more representation and more consent.
Other speakers before I ask the seconder? Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll just make a few comments. First of all, I'm a bit surprised about Councillor Hicks' complaint about lack of detail. I was there at the Suffolk County Council meeting in January, and there's a conspicuous lack of detail where we were launched on we took up the government's offer of local government organisation and a mayoral authority. I am going to support 3 unity authorities because I think the work that has been done by our own senior leadership team and council leader, together with senior leadership teams from other district and borough councils, shows a capacity for people to be able to work together, to be able to sort of create a new kind of local authority. And I think that's what local government reform is about. It's about a new form of local authority. It is going to be bigger. It's not going to be as cheap as a single unity authority, but often the cheapest solution is by no means the best solution. It is setting up 3 unity authorities that will work for our communities for the next 30 or 40 years. I think I can understand why the County Council is betting the bank on a single unity authority, potentially saving, according to its figures, about which we haven't got any details anyway, but these figures are supposed to be achieved by cuts. And it will be possible then for the County Council to hide its current savings and cuts within this overall budget. I think the word that I've learnt in this process is disaggregation. The County Council is looking over its shoulder at the mayoral authority, which will take some of the strategic decision-making away from it, and also look at the disaggregation as it is distributed between 3 unity authorities. And the work has been done there to ensure that those unity authorities will work together. They are working together now, and they will continue to work together to support services county-wide. There have been some cases, Somerset is an example, I think, where it took on as a single unity authority and had to form 15 regional district authorities in order to administrate a very diverse region. So, thank you.
Councillor Walters.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so I've listened intently to everything that everybody has said, and I really appreciate debate because I think it's so really important. And on matters such as this, I don't think it gets much more important because we are talking about local representation, we are talking about local democracy. And I've listened really carefully to certain speakers who have said, you know, they were going to vote one way or they were going to abstain and they've changed their minds and they are going to now support it. I had every intention of supporting it. And the debate has done nothing to change my mind. In fact, it's strengthened it because the person that we all know who is strongly behind the pink leaflet, I've been watching closely for the last half an hour, and he hasn't really engaged in the debate apart from when he spoke. He's been looking at his phone, he's been typing on his laptop. He hasn't listened really to anything anyone has said. That's my opinion. Okay. I will be supporting this. I believe it is democracy in action. Local people have talked to me. They like having local representation, and I believe that 3 unitaries will deliver that for them.
Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chair. I too have listened intently tonight. I believe very strongly that 3 smaller unitaries is the only sensible way forward. My feeling is that with regards to not knowing detail at the moment and not having the boundaries set out or anything, is that what I am voting on tonight is an agreement in principle that 3 is the way forward. I trust our leaders and our officers to now put together the business case behind that, and I look forward to seeing it in September. So I will be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
I know what you're going to say, Councillor Hicks.
Principle in local government and in chambers that you attack the policy and not the person. There's been a clear breach of that tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Walters, prepared to withdraw your comments that you made concerning a particular councillor?
Under the circumstances, Chair, if that is what I'm expected to do, I will withdraw those comments.
Okay, thank you. Can I just remind members that personal attacks are not allowed, and I should have intervened earlier on that. Okay, is there anyone that wishes to speak now before I call Councillor Stringer as the seconder? Councillor Stringer?
Thank you. I can get myself settled. It's good. Clearly emotions are running quite high because there's an awful lot at stake. And I think we're in a unique position tonight, I think actually, where everyone in the room is right. Everyone in the room is right. because every single comment made in here tonight has validity and weight. Somebody mentioned that it was undemocratic. Yes, it is. It really is undemocratic. What is being foisted upon us is the most undemocratic thing I've ever seen. But we can't change that. We've got to try and work with it to best represent those people we serve. How can we have trust, has been said, because there's little in the way of facts and figures, etc., etc. What you're being asked to agree to tonight is the working up and finishing off of a business case. That's all. It's not a decision set in stone, it is working up the business case. What business would you want to go in when we said, I tell you what, shall we go and work up a business case to do this? And go, no, because I haven't got any facts or figures, we're not going to do it at all. That's balmy. No business would ever get off the ground. First, you have to work up the business case before you then come to that decision of whether we launch the business or not. Somebody said tonight that we're not really making an informed choice tonight. We're really not making a choice tonight. You are making a choice tonight. If this motion is unsuccessful tonight, you've made a choice that there will be no alternative put forward by this council to One Suffolk. This council won't be doing that because you won't have agreed it. So where would that leave us? We also, there's an awful lot of distrust about where are the maps, where are the lines, all of this. There's an awful lot at stake. And also, there's been an awful lot of flack coming through, certainly through our doors in terms of leaflets. I've had 3 telephone calls from agencies trying to get my opinion on this, and I had to tell them I can't because I'm an elected councillor. Please take my number off the list, but they still keep ringing. We've had stuff through the door. We've had stuff coming through on social media, generated by a particular company that's been hired by a council that sits in this chamber. The amount of money being spent on this already by councils is a fortune. Is an awful lot of money. I mean, one agency alone has been paid £49,000 for the work they're doing. I think the pink leaflet alone is well over £30,000 worth, let alone a director to oversee it. But we're talking about what we're doing here tonight. What we need to make sure is what represents the good people of Mid-Suffolk is something that's big enough to deliver, but small enough to care. And I've had a lot of look at about identity. A lot of this is about identity. You know, if we split up Suffolk, Suffolk's just one thing. No, it's not. There's all sorts of Suffolks. There's High Suffolk, there's Rural Suffolk, there's Suffolk Coast, there's Sleepy Suffolk, there's Deeper Suffolk. I've been there once or twice. I've actually looked at my own identity on this to have a little look, and I was looking through some documents the other day, and I found my birth certificate. And this is the original, this isn't a copy. Andrew George Stringer, sorry about the second name, that's my dad. Born in 1964, I know, I don't look that old. Was born in Eye Hospital, in the sub-district of Eye and Stradbroke, the registration district of Hartismere. So, I'm now winding up, Chair. I'm now winding up. In the county of East Suffolk. In the county of East Suffolk. And what was most important was my medical card. My medical card, Andrew George Stringer, 1864, living in the Caravan, Finningham Station, Bacton. My parents lived in a caravan, they couldn't afford a house. But what's really important is that card comes from East Suffolk, the Executive Council. Thank you, East Suffolk Council, because they got a second card 2 years later at 16 Double Corner Cotton. That council found my parents a council house. They were small enough to care. I will be voting for this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Mellon, it's your turn to sum up.
Thank you, Chair. How long have I got? Okay, I'll try and be quick. This is a difficult subject, and it's not easy. I've said many times to my councillors, we didn't sign up for this. When this administration was elected in 2023, we did not anticipate we'd be the first Green administration at Mid-Suffolk and also the last Green administration. So this is a thorny issue. And the amount of rumour, the amount of conjecture, if you took it all seriously, you would believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. But can I just say, the full business case will be available before September's meeting. We will not be seeing it on the day before we have to submit it. Nobody is moving from Mid-Suffolk to West Suffolk and falling under their lack of 5-year land supply. There will be entirely new councils created, and the local plan area that we have at the moment
will still apply to Thurston for many years to come. I can confirm that we are not holding back information, but you simply cannot work up an option until it is chosen. And tonight, I hope we will choose between 2 and 3. I believe that 3 separate, distinct unitary councils working together in partnership where appropriate will deliver the best services for residents, gain efficiencies of scale, yet retain the balance of relatability and accountability that comes from a close local relationship between communities, councils and the councillors. And I think it is reasonable for a group of 5 sovereign councils to develop a joint proposal and put it forward for consideration by the government as requested. I think what residents may find unreasonable is another council launching an aggressive media campaign against that proposal before it has been seen. So I will be asking members to vote in favour of this proposal tonight, and I live not in Wonderland, I live in confident hope of the right outcome for the people of Suffolk. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will now ask the Head of Democratic Services to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Marriott, can I take your vote verbally? Abstaining. Thank you for your patience, members. That is 25 votes for, 3 against and 2 abstentions.
Therefore, that is carried. I'm now going to, about to close the meeting. Can I thank members for their perseverance tonight? It's been quite a lengthy meeting, but I think we've had some very good contributions by councillors from all sides. The next meeting is on Thursday, the 25th of September at 5:30 p.m. Therefore, I declare the meeting closed at 8:54.